Welcome, traveller of the waking world. You have found your way to this sanctuary of sound and silence, a place where the heavy cloak of the day can finally be slipped from your shoulders and left at the door. Here, in the velvet embrace of the night, there are no deadlines, no demands, and no ticking clocks. There is only the rhythm of your own breath, rising and falling like a gentle tide against a shore of white sand. Find a comfortable position now, perhaps sinking deeper into your mattress or nestling into the cushions that support you. Let your eyelids grow heavy, as if gravity itself is gently inviting them to close, shutting out the external lights and turning your gaze inward to the vast, star-filled canvas of your mind. Breathe in deeply, pulling the cool, calming air into your lungs, and then exhale slowly, releasing every ounce of tension you have carried with you. Imagine your body becoming lighter, dissolving into mist, ready to drift on the currents of curiosity and rest. Tonight, we embark on a journey of scale. We usually look up at the infinite cosmos to feel small, to feel that sense of wonder that quiets the ego. But tonight, we shall look down. We shall shrink our perspective, drifting closer and closer to the earth, passing through the blades of grass that now look like towering emerald forests and settling softly upon the rich, dark soil. There is a world beneath our feet, a civilization as complex and ancient as the stars above, hidden in plain sight. It is a world of quiet industry, of harmonious connection, and of ancient wisdom. Tonight, we explore the soothing microscopic universe of the ant. Let the concept of these tiny beings not be one of frantic movement, but of a slow, purposeful river of life. Let us float together through their hidden kingdom, learning their secrets as we drift toward the shores of sleep. Imagine, if you can, the sheer magnitude of life that pulses beneath the surface of our planet. It is a quantity so vast it defies the simple mathematics of the human mind. If you were to place all the humans of the world on one side of a great cosmic scale, and all the ants of the world on the other, the scales would tip heavy and decisive toward the ants. They are the hidden weight of the world, a living carpet that covers the globe in a silence we rarely notice. Picture a number so large it looks like the night sky. 20 quadrillion souls, weaving through the soil, moving through the leaf litter. It is comforting to think that we are never truly alone, that life is abundant and resilient, filling every corner of reality. This immense biomass is not chaotic. It is a stabilized force of nature. Just as the ocean is made of countless drops yet moves as one body, the population of ants on Earth creates a singular breathing layer of existence. They are the stewards of the soil, turning the Earth over with a patience that spans eons. Visualize this endless sea of tiny lives, a hum of existence that vibrates at a frequency lower than we can hear, grounding the planet, anchoring the very dirt we walk upon. It is a blanket of life, warm and constant, wrapping the earth in a process of eternal renewal. From this image of vast numbers, let your mind drift backward through the mists of time. Before we walked upright, before the great mammals roamed the plains, even before the mighty dinosaurs thundered across the prehistoric landscape, the ant was there. Imagine a golden drop of resin falling from an ancient pine tree 100 million years ago. It traps a moment in time, hardening into amber, preserving a tiny form in a suspended golden sleep. These creatures are the true elders of our world. They have witnessed the rise and fall of eras, the shifting of continents, and the changing of the climate, yet they have remained largely unchanged. Their design was perfected by nature so long ago that evolution simply nodded and said, "This is good, this shall stay." Visualize yourself standing in a prehistoric fern forest, the air thick and warm, the sunlight filtering through massive fronds. At your feet, the ancestors of today's ants are marching in the same lines, performing the same duties, carrying the same wisdom. There is a deep, resonant peace in knowing that some things endure. In a world of constant flux and rapid change, the ant is a symbol of permanence, a biological constant that stretches an unbroken thread from the deep past to this very moment where you lie resting. They are the time travelers who never left, carrying the secrets of the Cretaceous period in their very DNA. As we contemplate their ancient history, we begin to see that an ant is not merely an individual, lonely and small. Drifting deeper into our relaxation, we encounter the concept of the superorganism. Imagine looking down at a bustling city from the window of a plane at night. You see streams of light, moving and pulsing. You do not see the cars, only the flow of traffic. The colony acts in this same way, but with a unity that human cities can only dream of. Biologists often describe the colony not as a family, but as a single animal. The individual ant is just a cell, a neuron firing in a larger brain. Picture a great sprawling consciousness spread out across the forest floor. When one ant finds food, the colony finds food. When one ant senses danger, the colony knows fear. There is no I in their world, only we. This is a profoundly relaxing thought, the release of the burden of self. Imagine the relief of letting go of your own individuality for a moment, dissolving into a greater whole where you're supported, understood, and connected to thousands of others without the need for words. It is a seamless integration of purpose. The superorganism breathes together, works together, and survives together, a perfect example of unity where the burden of life is shared across thousands of tiny shoulders, making the weight light for everyone. And speaking of weight, let us marvel at the physics of their small bodies, a strength that seems to belong to the realm of mythology. We often feel heavy, weighed down by gravity and fatigue, but the ant defies these laws with a grace that is almost supernatural. If you could shrink down and observe them in slow motion, you would see a feat of engineering that rivals the greatest machines we have ever built. Picture a single worker lifting a seed or a leaf that is 10, 20, perhaps 50 times her own weight. It is the equivalent of you standing up and effortlessly lifting a fully loaded truck above your head, not with strain, but with a fluid, practiced motion. They do not struggle. Their muscles are designed for this immense leverage. Visualize the texture of a small pebble, rough and heavy to the touch. Now see the ant grasping it, hoisting it, and carrying it across the terrain of the garden as if it were made of styrofoam. There is a hypnotic rhythm to their labour. They are the atlas of the undergrowth, holding up their world with an endurance that does not falter. This imagery invites you to feel a sense of inner strength, a capability within yourself to handle the burdens of life with the same effortless grace, moving mountains one tiny stone at a time, without complaint, without exhaustion. How do they coordinate such feats? We drift now to the invisible language of the air. We rely on loud sounds and bright screens, but the ant moves through a world of scent. They are the masters of chemistry, painting the ground with invisible inks that only they can read. As an ant moves, she taps her abdomen to the earth, leaving behind a trail of pheromones, a chemical whisper that says, "Follow me, I have found sustenance." Imagine walking through a dense fog, but on the ground there is a glowing, luminous line that guides you perfectly to your destination. You never have to wonder where to go. The path is laid out in a ribbon of scent. These trails are complex highways of information. Some scents signal alarm, a sharp, spicy perfume that rallies the sisters. Others are the soft, sweet scents of the nursery, or the musty, earthen smell of home. Visualize the air around a colony as a tapestry of swirling colours, each colour a different message, weaving a network of communication that requires no sound. It is a silent symphony of smell. This idea allows us to rest in the knowledge that we don't always need to speak or to hear to understand. There is a deeper level of connection, an intuition, a silent guiding line that we can follow through the darkness, trusting that it leads us exactly where we need to be. At the centre of this swirling chemical world sits the anchor, the heart of the colony. We float now into the deepest, safest chamber of the nest to visit the queen. While the world above is a flurry of activity and changing seasons, the queen is the embodiment of stillness and longevity. While her workers may live for months, she can live for decades, some for nearly 30 years, a lifespan that is almost impossible to comprehend for an insect. Picture her there, in the warm, humid dark, tended to by her daughters. She is the mother of all, the genesis point. She does not rule with commands or decrees, she rules by simply being. She creates life. Her existence is one of singular focus and absolute protection. She is the grounding rod for the entire superorganism. Imagine the feeling of being that secure, buried deep within the earth, protected by thousands who would give their lives for you, insulated from the wind and the rain. She represents the long game, the endurance of the spirit. In her presence, time slows down completely. The frenetic energy of the surface does not reach her. She's the calm eye of the storm, the deep rhythmic beat of the colony's heart, reminding us that at the core of all busyness, there must be a centre of absolute peace. Surrounding this peaceful centre is a workforce of incredible dedication, a sisterhood of silence. It is a fact that in the world of ants, the work is done almost entirely by females. The workers, the soldiers, the foragers, all are sisters, bound by a genetic devotion to the whole. There is a division of labour here that flows as smoothly as water over stones. No one has to be told what to do, they simply know. Imagine a society where there is no envy, no ladder to climb, no competition for status. There are those who tend to the young, gently cleaning the larvae with tender mandibles. There are those who build, sculpting the earth with precision. There are those who explore, braving the vast unknown of the backyard. Visualize this cooperation as a perfectly choreographed dance. One sister passes a grain of sand to another, who passes it to another, a bucket brigade of unity. It is harmonious and conflict-free. This image of the sisterhood offers a respite from the competitive nature of our human lives. Here, your worth is not determined by being better than another, but by how well you harmonize with the whole. It is a relaxing vision of total acceptance and perfectly fitting into one's place in the universe. And what a place they build! Let us shrink further and enter the architecture of their homes. We often think of an anthill as a simple pile of dirt, but that is merely the chimney. Beneath the surface lies a metropolis that rivals our greatest architectural achievements. These are not dark, damp holes. They are climate-controlled cathedrals of soil. Visualize yourself walking down a spiral ramp carved into the cool, firm earth. The walls are smooth, packed tight by millions of tiny legs. As you descend, you feel the temperature stabilize. The ants have designed their city to capture the warmth of the sun in the upper chambers for the young, and to hold the cool moisture of the deep earth in the lower cellars for storage. There are ventilation shafts that circulate fresh air, feats of engineering that function without electricity or fans. It is a masterpiece of passive design. Imagine the coziness of these chambers, safe underground fortresses where the weather outside cannot touch you. If a storm rages above, the tunnels remain dry. If the sun scorches the surface, the depths remain cool. It is the ultimate safe house, a labyrinth of comfort designed to sustain life in perfect balance with the elements. In these underground gardens, we discover that ants were farmers long before humans ever planted a seed. But they do not just farm fungus or plants, they are shepherds. There is a gentle relationship in nature between the ant and the aphid, a small green creature that feeds on the sap of plants. The ants do not eat the aphids, they protect them. Picture a pasture on the underside of a rose leaf. The ants stand guard, warding off predators like wolves protecting a flock of sheep. In return, the aphid produces a sweet, sugary substance called honeydew. The ant gently strokes the aphid with its antennae, a tactile request, and the aphid releases the droplet. It is a symbiotic exchange, a handshake between species. Visualize this pastoral scene, the tiny shepherds tending their flocks on the rolling green hills of a leaf, harvesting the sweet nectar of their labour. It is a relationship built on care, not conquest. It reminds us of the sweetness of life that comes from mutual aid, the honey that is shared when we look after one another. It is a soft, pastoral image, full of green light and sugar, a lullaby of nature's kindness. As we drift toward the end of this first stream of thought, we might wonder, do these tireless workers ever rest? Do they ever close their eyes and drift away as you're doing now? The answer is a comforting yes. Even the ant, with all her strength and duty, must sleep. But their sleep is different. It is a series of power naps, hundreds of them a day. Imagine living a life where you can simply stop wherever you are and drift into a few minutes of restorative silence. A worker ant may take 250 little naps a day, brief moments of shutting down to recharge. But the queen, the deep dreamer, she sleeps longer, drifting into deep slumbers that last for 9 hours. Picture the colony not as a machine that never stops, but as a twinkling light, where different parts flicker on and off in a rhythm of rest. There is never a moment where everyone is asleep, but there is never a moment where everyone is awake. It is a rolling wave of rest. Let this permission to rest wash over you now. You do not need to finish everything today. You can pause, you can close your eyes, you can take a moment, just like the ant, to stop the movement, to fold your limbs, and to let the darkness hold you, if only for a little while, before the cycle begins again. From that gentle rhythm of rest, where the colony flickers in and out of wakefulness like a field of fireflies, we drift slowly toward the rituals of the morning, though morning in the eternal dark of the nest is merely a shift in activity. Upon waking from those brief restorative naps, the ant begins a practice of self-care that rivals the most fastidious of felines. We often think of insects as dirty, creatures of the soil and the rot, but the ant is a beacon of purity. Picture a creature stopping in the middle of a busy corridor, finding a quiet nook to begin the process of grooming. It is a slow, methodical yoga. She draws her front legs through her mandibles, moistening them, and then passes them over her face, her eyes, and those delicate antennae, cleaning them with the precision of a violinist polishing a bow. She twists and turns, reaching back to clean her abdomen, ensuring that every inch of her exoskeleton is free of dust and debris. This is not just vanity, it is survival. To be clean is to be healthy, to keep the senses sharp. Visualize the shine on their bodies, a polished mahogany or obsidian glint under the dim light. There is a deeply soothing quality to watching something clean itself, a reminder that we too can wash away the dust of the day, that we can scrub the mind clean, leaving only the polished, calm surface beneath. The colony is a place of hygiene, where sisters will often groom one another, a tender act of care that reinforces their bond, removing the grit of the world to leave only the smooth, gleaming essence of life. This intimacy of grooming naturally flows into the intimacy of sharing. In the human world, we possess our own bodies and our own resources, guarding them with walls and bank accounts. But in the fluid world of the ant, the very concept of mine dissolves into the ours. This is biologically encoded in their anatomy through a marvel known as the social stomach. Imagine for a moment that you have two stomachs. One is for you, to digest the fuel you need to move and breathe, but the other, the crop, is a reservoir for the community. When a forager goes out into the wide world and drinks a drop of nectar, she's not just drinking for herself, she's becoming a living vessel for her sisters. Picture a golden droplet of honey stored safely within her, carried back to the nest like a precious jewel in a velvet pouch. When she meets a hungry nestmate, they engage in a behaviour called trophallaxis. They touch mouth parts, a kiss of survival, and the liquid is regurgitated gently from the social stomach to feed the other. It is the ultimate act of generosity, occurring millions of times a day across the globe. Visualize this flow of energy, a liquid network of nutrition passing from one to another, a golden river that connects every member of the colony. It is a comforting thought to imagine a world where hunger is solved not by competition, but by the simple, reflexive act of sharing, where the abundance of one is automatically the abundance of all. To facilitate this sharing, to know who is who in the dark, they rely on the most sophisticated instruments of touch imaginable, the antennae. We experience the world largely through sight, a distancing sense, but the ant touches the world to know it. Their antennae are not just feelers, they are elongated fingers, noses and ears all wrapped into two slender mobile wands. If you could float down and inhabit the consciousness of an ant, the world would explode into a landscape of texture and chemical shape. These antennae are covered in thousands of microscopic hairs, each one a sensor tuned to a specific frequency of reality. Imagine walking through a room with your eyes closed, but your fingertips are so sensitive they can read the air pressure, the temperature, and the very molecular composition of the walls. When two ants meet, their antennae flicker rapidly against each other, a high-speed handshake that transmits volumes of data in a split second. I am your sister. I have found food. The queen is safe. Visualize the gentle tapping of these wands, a soft, rhythmic drumming against the world. It invites us to be more tactile, to feel the softness of the sheets against our skin, the weight of the blanket grounding us in the physical sensation of the now, moving away from the noise of the visual world into the quiet certainty of touch. As these antennae tap and flutter, they pick up more than just surface textures. They pick up the song of the earth. We assume ants are silent because our ears are too coarse to hear them, but if we were to amplify the soil, we would hear a chorus of stridulation. Many ants sing by rubbing a scraper on their abdomen against a file on their waist, much like running a thumb over the teeth of a comb, but softer, faster. Picture the sound of 1,000 tiny violins playing a low, rhythmic hum within the walls of the nest. This vibration travels through the ground, through the legs of their sisters, a message felt rather than heard. It is a purring of the earth. When a tunnel collapses or a food source is found, they drum their abdomens against the ground, sending shock waves of information. Imagine yourself lying on the forest floor, pressing your ear to the cool dirt. Beneath you, there is a constant, reassuring vibration, a hum of life that never ceases. It is a lullaby of industry. This concept of the singing soil adds a layer of depth to the silence of the night. It reminds us that silence is not empty. It is full of frequencies we simply cannot hear, a hidden music that holds the world together while we sleep. This vibration of cooperation rises from the ground and climbs into the canopy, where we meet the weavers. In the tropical forest, some ants have left the earth to build castles in the sky. The weaver ants are the master tailors of the insect world, and their method of construction is a ballet of teamwork that defies gravity. Visualize a gap between two large, glossy green leaves high in a mango tree. The gap is too wide for a single ant to cross, so they form a living chain. One ant grabs the edge of a leaf, another grabs her waist, and another grabs hers, stretching out like a bridge of bodies until they reach the other side. They pull, straining with a unified strength, drawing the leaves together until the edges touch. But how to seal them? This is where the magic happens. A worker gently picks up a larvae, a baby ant, and holds it like a glue gun. The larvae spins a soft white silk. The worker moves the larvae back and forth between the leaves, weaving a silky sheet that binds the green walls together. Picture this silent weaving, the white silk gleaming against the emerald leaf, creating a waterproof, windproof pouch suspended in the air. It is a home made of living effort and natural fibre, swaying gently in the breeze. It invites us to imagine being cradled in such a hammock, suspended high above the ground, held safe by the strength of others and the softest silk, rocking slowly with the rhythm of the wind. From the canopy, we drift down to the forest floor of the Amazon, where a different kind of harvest is taking place. Here, the leafcutter ants are marching in their famous endless lines. But look closely at what they carry. They are not eating the leaves, they are farming. These ants are the agriculturalists of the undergrowth, practicing a science millions of years old. Imagine a green river flowing over the brown roots of the jungle. Each ant carries a cut section of a leaf, held high above her head like a vivid green parasol or a sail. They march for miles, a diligent parade of emerald sails navigating the chaotic terrain. When they bring these leaves underground, they do not consume them. They chew them into a pulp to feed a fungus, a soft, white, bread-like mould that grows in their deep chambers. This fungus is their food. They weed it, they prune it, they clean it. They are gardening in the dark. Visualize the fungus gardens, vast caverns filled with this snowy, cotton-like growth, glowing faintly with the heat of decomposition. The smell is earthy, rich, like mushrooms and damp soil. It is a system of perfect recycling, turning the raw green of the forest into the soft white sustenance of the colony. It creates a sense of cyclical peace, the knowledge that nature wastes nothing, that every fallen leaf is the beginning of a new meal, a new life. Far away from the humid jungles, in the scorching heat of the Sahara, another cousin demonstrates a miracle of adaptation. The silver ant braves temperatures that would cook any other creature instantly. To survive this furnace, they have donned a suit of armour made of mirrors. Picture the midday sun beating down on the orange sands, the air shimmering with heat distortion. Most life is hidden, buried deep. But the silver ant emerges, moving like a drop of mercury. Her body is covered in tiny triangular hairs that reflect the sunlight, turning her into a living mirror. She creates her own shade. She runs with incredible speed to minimize contact with the burning sand, pausing occasionally on a dried stalk of grass to offload heat, a momentary respite. Visualize this glittering speck darting across the dunes, a tiny spark of light in the vast hot emptiness. Even in the harshest environments, life finds a way to be cool, to deflect the pressure, to shine. It is a powerful image for the mind, to envision oneself clad in silver, reflecting away the stress and the heat of the world, remaining cool and protected within a shimmering shield of calm. And speaking of speed, let us slow down time to witness the fastest movement in the animal kingdom. The trapjaw ant possesses a mechanism so rapid that the human eye cannot register it. It happens in the space between moments. But here, in our slow dream, we can watch it unfold with grace. Imagine the ant's mandibles are locked open, held back by a biological latch, a spring coiled with immense potential energy. Sensitive trigger hairs wait for the slightest touch. When a target brushes against them, the latch releases. In a fraction of a millisecond, faster than a blink, faster than a bullet, the jaws snap shut. But this force is used for more than just hunting. If the ant snaps its jaws against the ground, the force is so great it launches the ant backwards, catapulting her into the air to safety. Picture this in extreme slow motion, the jaws pressing down, the body floating upward in a graceful tumbling arc, escaping danger with a somersault of pure physics. It is a ballet of escape. It reminds us that sometimes the best way to handle a problem is to simply remove oneself from it, to launch away into the air, light and free, leaving the danger on the ground below. This movement of individuals coalesces into the movement of the whole with the army ants. Unlike their cousins who build fortresses in the dirt or trees, these ants are nomads. They have no permanent home. Their home is each other. They flow across the forest floor like a liquid entity, a swarm that moves with a singular mind. When they encounter a stream or a gap in the path, they do not turn back. They build, but they build with their own bodies. Visualize a living bridge. Ants link legs and mandibles stretching across the void, holding tight while their sisters walk across their backs. As the army passes, the bridge dissolves from the rear and forms at the front, a rolling wave of cooperation. At night, they do not dig a nest. They form a bivouac. They hook together to form a massive hanging ball of ants, sheltering the queen and the young inside. It is a living tent, a structure made entirely of friendship and trust. Imagine being part of that embrace, surrounded on all sides by those who support you. A warm, protective huddle that keeps the night at bay. It is the ultimate definition of community. We are the shelter, We are the road. We are the home. All this movement, this marching, this building requires breath. But the ant has no lungs. It does not heave a chest up and down as we do. Its breathing is a passive, gentle acceptance of the air. Along the sides of their armoured bodies are tiny portholes called spiracles. Picture these microscopic windows along the thorax and abdomen. They open to let the fresh oxygen drift in, flowing through a network of tubes that deliver air directly to every cell, and then they close to keep moisture in. It is a breathing system that works by diffusion, by the natural flow of the universe from high pressure to low pressure. The ant does not struggle to breathe, it simply allows the air to enter. Visualize this effortless exchange. Air flows in, stillness flows out. There is no effort, no panting. As you lie there, imagine your own skin breathing like the ant, every pore opening to accept the cool, rejuvenating night air, letting oxygen seep into your muscles, your bones, without you having to do anything at all. You're being breathed by the universe, just as the ant is, connected to the atmosphere in a silent, continuous rhythm of life. And just as the air fills the body with invisible life, flowing effortlessly through those tiny spiracles, so too must the colony store the physical essence of the world to survive the lean times. We drift now from the breath to the belly, to a chamber in the deep earth where one of the most mesmerizing spectacles of the natural world hangs in silent suspension. Here, in the cool, dry dark of the desert nest, we encounter the living pantries known as the honeypot ants. Visualize a cavern with a vaulted earthen ceiling, rough and cool. Hanging from this ceiling, gripping the soil with tenacious claws, are the repletes. These are workers who have volunteered for a life of stillness. They have gorged themselves on the sweet nectar brought to them by their sisters, until their abdomens have swollen into perfect translucent spheres the size of grapes. Picture the light filtering through their skin, a warm, golden amber glow. They are living jars of honey, suspended in the darkness, row upon row of golden globes. They do not move, they simply exist to hold the energy of the colony. There is a profound patience here. Imagine being so devoted to the well-being of your family that you become the vessel for their survival, holding the sweetness of the summer safe within you while the winter winds howl above. If you were to touch one, it would feel smooth, taut, and cool. They are the bank, the reservoir, the insurance policy against the drought. In the quiet of the nest, they hang like lanterns that give off no light, only sustenance. This image invites you to feel a sense of fullness, a reserve of energy stored deep within your own core. You do not need to hunt for comfort right now. You have stored it up. It is there, hanging in the golden chambers of your mind, ready to nourish you whenever you need it. You're full, you're safe, and you're prepared for the long night. From this stillness of storage, we shift our gaze to the movement of growth, drifting out of the nest and into the springtime forest. The ant is not just a hoarder of sugar. She is the invisible gardener of the wild. There is a beautiful, silent contract between the ant and the wildflower, a relationship known as myrmecochory. Picture a delicate violet or a trillium blooming on the forest floor. These plants have wrapped their seeds in a special gift, a fleshy, edible handle called an eleosome. It is a treat designed specifically for the ant. The ant finds the seed, not by accident, but by design. She picks it up, attracted by the scent, and carries it back to her nest. Visualize the journey of the seed, carried gently in the mandibles, moving across the moss and the fallen leaves. When she arrives home, the colony eats the external gift, the eleosome, but the seed itself remains hard and untouched. They do not discard it as trash. They place it in their nutrient-rich waste chambers, effectively planting it in the perfect compost. They are the sowers of the forest. Imagine the thousands of wildflowers that bloom every spring, the carpet of white and purple that greets the sun. That beauty exists because of the ant. They are moving the forest, one seed at a time. It is a slow, generational gardening. This thought allows us to see the world as a place of hidden cooperation. Even when we think we're just carrying a burden, we might actually be planting a garden for the future. We can rest in the knowledge that our small actions, like the ant carrying the seed, contribute to a blooming beauty we may not see until the winter has passed. But to find these seeds, and to find the way home again, the ant requires a guidance system that rivals our most advanced technology. We often feel lost, unsure of our direction, but the ant possesses an internal certainty that is absolute. We float now to the scorching sands of the desert, where there are no landmarks, no trees, no street signs, only a shifting ocean of beige grains. Here, the desert ant leaves her nest to forage. She winds back and forth, turning left, turning right, traversing a chaotic, squiggly path for hundreds of meters. But when she finds food, she does not retrace her steps. She turns and runs in a mathematically perfect straight line directly back to the entrance of her home. How? She's reading the sky. Her eyes are sensitive to polarized light, the invisible patterns of the sun's rays as they scatter through the atmosphere. Even when the sun is hidden by clouds, she sees the geometry of the light. Visualize a compass dial locked into the sky. No matter how she turns, the needle of her mind points home. She's also counting her steps, an internal pedometer that measures distance with exact precision. Imagine possessing this sense of orientation. No matter how far you drift into the dream world, no matter how twisting the path of your thoughts becomes, there is a tether of light connecting you to your center. You can never truly be lost. You can always turn and glide effortlessly back to the source of your safety. The sun guides you. The polarization of the light creates a highway in the air, and your own internal rhythm counts the beat of the journey home. There are forces even more subtle than light that guide these tiny travelers. As we drift deeper into the mysteries of their senses, we encounter the magnetic pull of the earth itself. Just as the great sea turtles and the migrating birds sense the north and south, so too do many ants. Deep within their antennae, there are microscopic crystals of magnetite, a mineral that aligns with the planet's magnetic field. They are living compasses. Picture invisible lines of force curving around the globe, lines that protect us from the solar wind and guide the flow of nature. The ant feels these lines. She knows which way is north not by looking, but by feeling a gentle tug in the very chemistry of her body. It is a connection to the planet on a planetary scale. When an ant builds her nest or chooses direction to forage, she's often aligning herself with the great magnetic flowing of the earth. Visualize yourself lying on the ground, feeling the subtle humming energy of the poles. You are part of this grid. You are grounded. The earth is holding you, not just with gravity, but with magnetism, a force that permeates everything, keeping the world aligned. It is a stabilizing thought, to be locked into the great grid of existence, held in place by the same forces that spin the world. This magnetic grounding is usually felt on solid earth, but there are those in the ant family who have conquered the element of water. We leave the dry magnetic lines of the desert and float into the humid, salty air of the mangrove swamps. Here, the tide rises and falls, swallowing the land twice a day. For most creatures, this is a crisis. For the swimming ant, it is simply a change of scenery. Visualize the water rising cool and dark. Instead of drowning, these ants emerge from their nests and step onto the surface of the water. They do not break the tension, they ride it. Picture a small, sleek body gliding across the mirror-like surface of a mangrove pool. They paddle with their legs, moving with a fluid grace, swimming from tree trunk to tree trunk. Some can even dive, submerging themselves into the silent, muffled world beneath the surface, holding their breath as they forage among the submerged roots. There is a serene beauty in this adaptability. Water, which is usually a barrier, becomes a highway. Imagine the sensation of being weightless, suspended in the cool water, paddling slowly through a submerged forest. The sounds of the world are muffled here. There is only the rhythmic motion of the swim, the gentle ripple of the water against the exoskeleton. It invites us to be fluid in our own lives, to let the rising tides of emotion or circumstance lift us up rather than drown us, to learn to swim through the changes with a calm paddling rhythm. When the swim is over and the ant returns to the nest, she seeks the ultimate security. In the hollows of trees, there is a species that has evolved a physical solution to the problem of safety. We call them the doorhead ants, or cephalotes. Their bodies are designed with a singular purpose: to close the loop. Imagine a small round entrance to a nest carved into the wood of an oak tree. It is a perfect circle. Now picture the soldier ant. Her head is not shaped like a normal head. It is flat, circular, and heavily armoured, like a manhole cover or a cork. When danger approaches, or when the colony simply wants to rest, she climbs to the entrance and plugs it with her own head. She fits perfectly. There is no gap, no handle, no way to push her in. She becomes the door. Visualize this absolute seal. The world is outside with its noise and its predators, and the colony is inside, safe behind the living shield. It is a perfect fit, a click of security. Imagine the feeling of being that secure, of being able to block out the entire world simply by being yourself, fitting into your space so perfectly that nothing can disturb your peace. You're the gatekeeper of your own mind. You can close the door, you can seal the room, you can rest behind the armour, knowing that the barrier is impenetrable, and the sanctuary within is yours alone. This concept of the living home extends even further when we consider the partnership between the ant and the acacia tree. On the savannas of Africa, where the wind whistles through the long grass, there stands a tree covered in thorns. But these thorns are not just sharp, they are hollow, bulbous chambers grown specifically to house a colony. Visualize the wind blowing across the savanna, creating a low, flute-like sound as it passes over the holes in the thorns. Inside these musical chambers, the ants live in comfort. The tree provides them with everything: a waterproof home inside the thorns and sweet nectar from special glands on the stems. In return, the ants are the tree's bodyguards. If a giraffe approaches to eat the leaves, the ants rush out, a tiny army defending their castle. But tonight, focus on the shelter. Imagine shrinking down and crawling inside one of these hollow thorns. It is a round, smooth room, amber-coloured from the sunlight filtering through the plant tissue. It smells of fresh sap and green wood. Outside, the wind sings its lullaby, a constant, gentle vibration that rocks the branch. You are held in the arms of a giant living being. The tree protects you, and you are part of the tree. It is a symbiotic embrace, a relationship where the home is alive and growing around you. Rest in this hollow sanctuary, listening to the wind song of the savannah, safe within the armour of the thorn. Inside these clean, protected spaces, the health of the colony is paramount. We often think of medicine as pills and sterile clinics, but the ant has been a pharmacist for millions of years, living in such close quarters. With thousands of sisters bumping into one another, illness could spread like wildfire. To prevent this, they have evolved the metapleural gland. Located on the side of the thorax, this gland produces a potent cocktail of antibiotics and antifungals. The ant is a walking dispenser of purity. She constantly spreads this secretion over her body and the bodies of her nestmates. They're coating themselves in a shield of chemical cleanliness. Visualize a scent, sharp, tart, perhaps like lemon or vinegar, a clean, astringent smell that cuts through the mustiness of the earth. This is the smell of safety. The nest is not a dirty hole. It is one of the cleanest places in nature, scrubbed constantly by these living secretions. When they bring food in, they clean it. When they bring seeds in, they sterilize them. Imagine being covered in a fine, invisible mist that repels all sickness, a shield that keeps the rot at bay. It allows you to relax into the idea of purity, feeling cleansed and protected, knowing that your own body has its defences, its own wisdom to keep you well while you rest. As the seasons turn and the air grows cold, the industry of the colony begins to slow. The high-speed movements of summer fade into the lethargy of autumn, and finally the deep stillness of winter. But ants do not die in the cold. They enter a state called diapause. It is a hibernation so deep it borders on suspended animation. As the temperature drops, the water in their bodies changes. They produce natural antifreeze, glycerol and alcohols that prevent their cells from freezing and shattering. They become cold-blooded in the truest sense, matching the temperature of the soil around them. Visualize the colony in winter. The tunnels are silent. The workers are huddled together in tight clusters, motionless statues in the dark. Their breathing slows to a whisper. Their hearts beat in a rhythm so slow it takes patience to measure. They are waiting. They are not dead. They are merely paused. Time passes over them without touching them. The snow piles up above, a white blanket insulating the earth, and down below the ants sleep the deep, dreamless sleep of the earth itself. This is the ultimate permission to stop. You do not need to be productive all year round. There is a time to freeze, to halt, to let the cold winds blow while you remain safe and still, preserving your energy for the coming spring. Let your own mind enter diapause, slowing down the racing thoughts, cooling the fires of anxiety, settling into a preserved state of rest. And in this deep quiet, sometimes there are guests who are welcomed into the fold, mysteries of the natural world that speak to the power of care. Deep in the nests of certain ants, you might find a creature that is not an ant at all, the caterpillar of the Alcon blue butterfly. This caterpillar has mastered the language of the ant so perfectly that it is adopted. It smells like an ant larva. It makes the sounds of an ant queen. The workers find it in the wild, and instead of eating it, they gently pick it up and carry it into the heart of the nest. Visualize this soft, blue-green creature being carried down the tunnels, handled with the same reverence given to their own kin. They place it in the nursery. They feed it the best food. They groom it. The caterpillar sings a low, magnetic song that mimics the queen, a lullaby that charms the colony into loving it. It is a story of radical acceptance. Even though it is different, even though it will one day grow wings and fly away, for now, it is family. Imagine being that caterpillar. You're carried by strong, many-legged friends into a warm, safe place. You are fed and cared for simply because you asked to be. You're wrapped in the collective love of the superorganism, a guest of honor in the city of the soil. It is a feeling of being completely taken care of having no responsibilities other than to grow and to dream. Let yourself be carried now, deeper into the nest, past the sleeping sisters, past the glowing honeypots, into the softest, deepest chamber where the dreams are waiting. And here, in this deep nursery where the caterpillar rests as an honoured guest, we find ourselves surrounded by the true children of the colony, the silent sleepers of the next generation. We often perceive ants as creatures of perpetual motion, legs scuttling and mandibles working, but a vast portion of their existence is spent in a state of profound, motionless transformation. We drift now to the concept of the pupa, the sleep within the sleep. Visualize the nursery chamber, a room with walls of smooth, packed earth, humid and warm like a tropical greenhouse. Lining the floor are hundreds of small white forms. These are the larvae that have finished their eating and have now spun themselves into cocoons, or in some species lie naked and pale, looking like small statues carved from ivory. They are perfectly still. Inside these casings, a miracle of biology is taking place. The biological material is breaking down, dissolving into a fluid potential and reassembling into the complex machinery of legs, antennae, and eyes. Imagine the peace of this state. There is no hunger here, no need to hunt, no need to build. There is only the slow, molecular work of becoming. The worker ants move among them like silent nurses in a hospital ward, gently picking up the pupae with their mandibles, not to harm them, but to turn them, to lick them clean, to stack them according to size. Picture a pile of these soft white bundles, a mountain of sleeping souls. They are soft to the touch, fragile, and utterly dependent on the care of their sisters. It is a vision of total surrender. The the pupa trusts the colony completely. It invites you to feel that same sense of trust, to wrap yourself in a mental cocoon of silk, to dissolve your current worries and allow yourself to simply be under construction, resting while the universe reassembles your energy for the day to come. While the pupae sleep their deep developmental sleep, there is another group of ants in the colony who are sleeping in a different way, or rather, they are actively doing nothing. For years, scientists watched the frantic activity of the anthill and assumed every ant was a workaholic. But closer observation has revealed a comforting secret: the lazy ant theory. It turns out that at any given moment, nearly 40% of the colony is inactive. Picture these ants, not as lazy, but as living reserves. They are the backup batteries. They sit in the quiet corners of the tunnels, their legs folded, their antennae still. They are not sleeping, they are simply waiting. They are a buffer against disaster. If a tunnel collapses or a sudden abundance of food appears, they can spring into action, but until then, their job is to preserve energy. Visualize a room filled with these resting sisters, a lounge of quietude. They do not pace, they do not fidget, they possess the discipline of stillness. In a world that constantly demands productivity, the ant teaches us the value of the reserve. It validates your need to simply sit, to stare at the wall, to exist without producing anything. By doing nothing, you are actually serving the whole, keeping your energy intact for when it is truly needed. You are the calm ballast in the ship, keeping it steady by simply holding your ground and resting your weight. From this stillness, when movement does happen, it often happens with a tenderness that defies the insect's robotic reputation. We float now to the delicate art of teaching, a behaviour known as tandem running. We usually think of teaching as a human endeavour, involving blackboards and words, but the ant teaches through touch and infinite patience. Imagine an older, experienced forager who knows the location of a rich, sugary secretion. She does not simply leave a chemical trail, she invites a younger, novice sister to come with her. They set off together. The teacher leads, and the student follows, keeping close contact. The student taps her antennae against the teacher's legs and abdomen, a tactile signal that says, "I am here, keep going." If the student falls behind to examine a landmark or to learn the scent of the path, the teacher stops. She does not rush. She does not pull. She simply waits. She stands perfectly still, vibrating gently, until the student returns and taps her again. "I am ready." Only then does she move. Visualize this stop-and-start journey through the tall blades of grass. It is a relationship of deep attunement. The speed of the journey is determined not by the fastest, but by the slowest. It is a relaxing reminder that you do not need to know the way alone. There are guides who will wait for you, who will slow their pace to match yours, ensuring that you learn the path home without anxiety, guided by a reassuring touch in the darkness. This theme of guidance and protection extends even to the way they travel. In the dense jungles of the tropics, the leafcutter ants we observed earlier, those carrying the green sails, have a tiny secret passenger. We zoom in now, closer than ever before, to the leaf being carried by a large worker ant. There, riding on top of the leaf fragment like a captain on the bridge of a ship, is a tiny ant, a minim. These minims are too small to cut leaves and too small to carry them, but they have a vital purpose. They are the guardians of the carriers. As the large worker marches, defenseless because her jaws are full, parasitic flies try to land on her head. The tiny hitchhiker rushes across the green surface of the leaf, jaws open, defending her big sister. Picture this scene, a river of green leaves flowing through the forest, and on every leaf, a tiny brave guardian riding along. It is a symbiotic commute. The large ant does the heavy lifting. The small ant provides the cover. To the tiny minim, the leaf is a vast, swaying platform, a flying carpet moving through the dappled sunlight of the understory. She sees the world passing by from her high vantage point, safe from the ground, serving a purpose just by being there. Imagine yourself as that passenger, riding the leaf. You're being carried by a strength greater than your own, and your only job is to watch over the one who carries you. It is a balance of strength and care, a gentle ride through the jungle where no one travels alone. The connection between ants is not just local, it is quite literally global. We drift now to a concept that challenges our understanding of borders, the global mega colony. While most ant colonies will fight with their neighbours, the Argentine ant has achieved something closer to world peace. Due to a quirk in their genetics, Argentine ants from California, Europe and Japan all smell like the same family. If you were to take an ant from a sidewalk in Madrid and place her in a colony in San Francisco, thousands of miles away, she would not be attacked. She would be greeted, groomed and welcomed into the nest. She is a citizen of the world. Visualize a vast, invisible web of connections stretching across the oceans. It is as if they are all holding hands under the water, a single super family that spans the globe. This creates a sense of immense belonging. No matter how far you travel, you are never truly a stranger. There is a familiarity inherent in existence. Imagine walking into a room on the other side of the world and being recognized instantly as kin, as a part of the whole. The mega colony suggests that separation is an illusion, that beneath the surface geography, there is a unified consciousness that recognizes itself wherever it goes. You are part of a family that has no edges, a community that never ends. This global family knows how to build homes that are not just shelters, but machines for living. We travel now to the cool, pine-scented forests of the Northern Hemisphere to visit the wood ants and their great thatch mounds. These are not simple piles of dirt, they are solar collectors built with the wisdom of an architect. Picture a mound rising from the forest floor, 3 or 4 feet high, covered in a meticulous layer of pine needles, small twigs and dried grass. It looks like a rustic thatched cottage. The ants orient the mound to face the south, catching the longest rays of the sun. The thatch is designed to absorb heat, warming the nest like a biological radiator. But the sensory experience is what truly soothes. Imagine the smell of this nest, the sharp, fresh scent of pine resin and warm earth. The ants constantly turn the thatch, rotating the needles to prevent mold and to regulate the temperature. On a cool morning, the mound steams gently, a warm heart in the cold forest. Visualize yourself shrinking down and curling up inside this mound. It is dry, smelling of the forest floor and radiates a gentle stored heat. It is the ultimate cozy cabin, a structure built entirely of the forest's cast-off materials, turned into a warm sanctuary against the chill of the wind. It reminds us of the comfort of a heavy blanket, of trapping our own warmth and staying safe and heated while the world outside is cool. But even in the safest home, accidents happen, and when they do, the ant reveals a capacity for altruism that is deeply touching. We shift our gaze to the sandy soil where a tunnel is partially collapsed, trapping a worker behind a wall of grains. In the human world, we might panic, but here, the response is immediate and precise. This is the rescue behaviour. The trapped ant produces a distress signal, a specific pheromone that cries out for help. Her sisters nearby do not flee. They freeze, pinpoint the signal, and then begin to dig. But they dig with extreme care. They do not just hack away at the dirt, they remove the sand grain by grain, sensing the stability of the pile, ensuring they do not cause a further collapse. Picture the scene, the frantic signals of the trapped one turning into relief as she sees the mandibles of her sisters breaking through the wall. They reach in, grab her limbs, and gently pull her free. They will spend hours digging for just one sister. There is a profound sense of loyalty here. No one is left behind. Visualize the feeling of being stuck, of feeling the weight of the world pressing down, and then, suddenly, seeing the light break through. Hands reach out to help you, not asking for payment, not judging how you got stuck, simply pulling you into the safety of the open air. You are valuable enough to be rescued. You are worth the effort of the dig. This care extends not just to the living, but to the space they inhabit. We often think of insects as living in filth, but ants are the original masters of feng shui. We drift to the entrance of a harvester ant nest, where we find something strange and beautiful, a Zen garden of pebbles. These ants are collectors. They scour the surrounding desert for small stones, often choosing specific colours: red clay, white quartz, or bits of charcoal. They carry these stones back and arrange them in a flat disc around the entrance of their nest. This is not random, it is engineering art. The stones prevent other plants from growing near the door, they trap the morning dew for a drink, and they change the airflow into the tunnels. But look at the aesthetic. Picture thousands of tiny stones, arranged in a perfect mosaic by thousands of tiny hands. The sound of their work is a soft clicking, stone against stone. It creates a boundary, a sacred space between the chaotic wild and the ordered home. Visualize the satisfaction of arranging things, of putting your own environment in order stone by stone. There is a meditative rhythm to it. The harvester ant clearing her doormat, placing the white quartz just so. It invites you to mentally arrange your own thoughts, placing them like smooth stones in a circle, creating a clear, uncluttered space where you can enter and exit your dreams with ease. While the harvester ants collect stones, another species collects scents. We float into the soil of a North American garden to find the citronella ant, also known as the larger yellow ant. These creatures are subterranean farmers of aphids, rarely seeing the sun, but they carry a secret weapon, a perfume. If you were to gently disturb the soil near them, you would not smell the musk of an insect. You would smell the bright, zesty aroma of lemons. These ants produce a citronella-like compound as a defense mechanism, but for us, the observer, it is a sensory delight. Imagine a colony that smells like a citrus grove. As they move through the dark earth, they leave behind a trail of lemon-fresh scent. It is aromatherapy in the undergrowth. Visualize the soil itself infused with this clean, sharp fragrance. It clears the senses. It cuts through the heaviness of the dark. Imagine breathing in that scent now, fresh lemon, verbena, and clean earth. It is a scent that signifies clarity and freshness. Even in the dirt there is sweetness. Even in the dark there is a bright, uplifting aroma that cleanses the air, reminding us that beauty and freshness can be found in the most unexpected places, hidden just beneath the surface of the grass. Finally, as we rest in this lemon-scented garden, we feel a change in the air pressure. The ants feel it too. We drift to the concept of the rain sense. Long before the first drop falls, the colony knows the storm is coming. They are living barometers. As the low-pressure system moves in, the air in the tunnels changes. The ants respond with a slow, purposeful migration. They begin to move the pupae, the larvae and the queen from the lower chambers to higher ground, or sometimes deeper, depending on the flood risk. They plug the entrance holes with dirt and pebbles, sealing the hatches. Picture the hush that falls over the world before a storm. The ants are tucked away, safe behind their earthen doors. They gather together in the central chambers, a huddled mass of warmth. Outside, the first heavy drops of rain begin to patter against the soil. Tap, tap, tap. But inside, it is dry. Inside, it is quiet. The smell of petrichor, the scent of rain hitting dry earth, seeps into the soil, a comforting, drowsy smell. Visualize the colony waiting out the storm. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do but listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. The world above is being washed clean, while the world below rests in dry, warm suspension. The sound of the rain is a blanket, a white noise that wraps around the nest, muffling the sounds of predators and chaos. You are there with them, safe in the dry earth, listening to the washing of the world, protected, prepared, and perfectly at peace, waiting for the sun to return in its own time. And as the rain subsides, leaving the earth washed and glistening under the returning sun, a profound chemical shift occurs in the air. The soil is damp, the temperature is rising, and the humidity hangs heavy and sweet among the blades of grass. This is the signal. It is the moment the colony has been waiting for, sometimes for an entire year. The wet earth triggers one of the most spectacular synchronized events in the natural world, the nuptial flight. Visualize the ground beginning to bubble with life. From the hidden entrances we observed earlier, a new kind of ant emerges. These are not the wingless workers who have toiled in the dirt. These are the alettes, the winged princes and princesses of the underground. They are larger, glossier, and they carry on their backs delicate, translucent wings that shimmer like oil on water. Picture thousands of them emerging simultaneously from every nest in the meadow, a rising mist of life. They climb the tall stalks of grass, reaching for the high points, their wings drying in the sun. There is a sense of immense anticipation, a collective holding of breath before the leap, and then, as if responding to a silent conductor, they take flight. Imagine the sensation of lifting off, of breaking the bond with the gravity of the earth. For a creature born in the dark tunnels, this is the first and only taste of the vast open sky. They spiral upward, riding the warm thermals, turning the air into a glittering galaxy of motion. It is a celebration of survival, a mass exodus that transforms the heavy, grounded energy of the colony into a weightless dance among the clouds. High above the trees, these rising columns of winged ants congregate. To the human eye, it might look like smoke rising from the forest floor, a chimney of insects. This is the summit of their existence, a chaotic, joyful mixing of genetic lines. They do not fight here, they meet. Visualize this high-altitude reunion as a swirling ball of energy suspended in the blue. The queens, large and heavy with the future, fly through the clouds of smaller, faster males. It is a moment of pure biological purpose. The air is filled with the hum of millions of wings, a vibration that resonates with the very frequency of life creation. In this vast, open space, boundaries dissolve. Colonies that were enemies on the ground become partners in the sky. Imagine floating in the center of this swarm, not with fear, but with awe at the sheer abundance of it. It is a reminder that nature is not stingy. It pours life out in great, generous waves. There is a feeling of boundless possibility here, a sense that the future is being written in the signatures of flight. It is the ultimate release, a brief, ecstatic separation from the soil before the cycle demands a return. It invites you to let your own spirit rise, to detach from the heavy details of the ground, and swirl for a moment in the high, clean air of potential, untethered and free. But the flight, for the Queen, is a journey with a destination. She carries a precious cargo, the genetic code for a new civilization. Once the union is complete, she turns her gaze back to the earth. The sky was a temporary ballroom, the ground is her eternal home. She begins her descent, a slow, spiraling glide back to the reality of the soil. Visualize her landing. She touches down on a patch of moss, or perhaps a warm stone, far away from the nest where she was born. She's alone now. The thousands of sisters, the protection of the soldiers, the smell of home, all are gone. She's a pioneer standing on the edge of a new world. She wanders across the terrain, tapping the ground with her antennae, seeking the perfect spot. It must be humid, but not wet. It must be soft, but stable. Picture the deliberation in her movement. She's choosing the foundation of a kingdom that could last for decades. She investigates a fissure in a log or a soft patch of sand under a leaf. This moment of selection is quiet and profound. It is the silence after the party. It is the grounding. It reminds us of the moments in our own lives when the excitement fades and we must choose where to plant our feet, where to build our sanctuary. It is a heavy, comforting responsibility, the feeling of touching the earth and saying, "Here, I will build it here." Once the spot is chosen, the Queen performs an act of irrevocable commitment. She no longer needs the sky. She no longer needs the wind. And so, she removes her wings. This is not painful. It is a shedding of a past life. She reaches back with her legs, or rubs against a stone, snapping the wings off at the shoulder. Visualize the delicate, glassy wings falling to the ground, discarded like a bridal veil that is no longer needed. She is now fully of the earth. There is a powerful finality to this gesture. She can never fly again. She has traded the freedom of the air for the security of the deep. See the scars on her thorax where the wings used to be. 4 small marks that she will carry for the rest of her life, a badge of her journey. This act, autotomy, is a lesson in focus. To build something lasting, one must sometimes let go of the mechanisms of escape. You cannot build a home if you're always ready to fly away. Imagine the relief of that decision, the shedding of the what-ifs, the snapping off of the escape route so that you can fully inhabit the here and now. It is a surrender to the place you have chosen, a deepening of your roots. Now wingless and determined, she begins to dig. She does not wait for workers to help her. She is the architect and the labourer. She excavates a small vertical tunnel, pushing the dirt up around her. Then she hollows out a small room, perhaps the size of a thimble, deep enough to be safe from the drying sun and the prying eyes of predators. And then she does something extraordinary. She closes the door from the inside. She seals the tunnel she just dug, plugging it with soil, shutting out the light, the air currents, and the world entire. This is the claustral chamber. Visualize this tiny, dark, spherical room. It is absolute solitude. It is absolute silence. The queen is now buried alive by her own choice. But this is not a tomb. It is a womb. She settles into the darkness, curling her legs beneath her. The air is still and humid. She will not leave this room, nor will she eat for weeks, perhaps even months. There is a profound coziness to this image, the ultimate withdrawal from the sensory overload of the world. Imagine being that safe, that hidden. No one knows where you are. No one can ask anything of you. You are sealed in a capsule of your own making, wrapped in the comforting, cool embrace of the Mother Earth. It is a time of waiting, of gestation, a permission to disconnect from everything and simply exist in the quiet dark. But if she does not eat, how does she survive? How does she create the eggs that will become the first workers? We drift inward now to the miracle of her own biology. The massive muscles that once powered her wings, those engines of flight that carried her into the clouds, are no longer needed. In the quiet of the dark chamber, her body begins to dissolve them. This process is called histolysis. She breaks down her own muscle tissue, converting the protein into energy, into milk, into the very substance of the egg she is laying. She is feeding the future with the strength of her past. Visualize this internal alchemy. The strength that was once used to fight the wind is now being transformed into a soup of nourishment. It is a seamless recycling of self. Nothing is wasted. The flight was not in vain. The flight literally becomes the fuel for the next generation. It is a comforting thought to know that our past efforts, even the ones we have shed or left behind, are never lost. They are metabolized. They become the energy that sustains us in the dark times. You're living off the strength you built years ago, transforming it into something new, something quiet, something that grows in the silence. In this sealed darkness, the first eggs appear. They are pearly white, oblong, and impossibly small. The queen tends to them with a tenderness that is moving to witness. She licks them constantly to prevent mold, rotating them, stacking them in neat piles. She is the sole caretaker. Time in the claustral chamber moves slowly. The eggs hatch into larvae, tiny, hungry mouths. Since the queen cannot leave to forage, she feeds them with the only resource she has, herself. She regurgitates the liquid food derived from her dissolved wing muscles. She may even lay trophic eggs, empty eggs designed solely to be eaten by the larvae. Visualize this silent sacrifice. In the cool dark, the mother shrinks while the children grow. She's giving away her reserves, drop by drop. It is a quiet, desperate, beautiful transfer of life. The atmosphere in the chamber is one of hushed reverence. It is a suspended state of existence, where the only clock is the slow growth of the white larvae. Imagine the patience required for this, to sit in the dark and give of yourself until the work is done. It speaks to a deep biological faith that the investment will pay off, that if you give everything you have to the seed of an idea, it will eventually hatch and carry you forward. Finally, the day arrives. The larvae spin their cocoons, sleep their pupils sleep, and emerge as the first adult ants. These are the nanitics. They are not like the workers we see on the sidewalk. Because the queen had limited food, these first daughters are miniatures, half the size of a normal worker, timid and shy. Picture them emerging from their cocoons, pale and soft. They do not rush out to conquer the world. They stay close to the queen. They are the nursery staff. They cling to her legs, grooming her, feeding her for the first time in months. Visualize these tiny, fairy-like ants, moving with tentative steps around the small chamber. They are the first success, the proof of life. They are gentle and risk-averse. They know that they are the only thing standing between the colony's survival and extinction. There is a sweetness to the nanitics, a fragility. They remind us that new beginnings are often small and quiet. You do not need to start with a roar. You can start small with a nanitic step, a tiny tentative movement that simply says, "I am here. I have survived." As the nanitics gain strength, the time comes to break the seal. The resources in the queen's body are exhausted. The colony must eat. And so the tiny workers turn their attention to the plug of earth that has sealed them in for so long. Visualize the first grains of dirt being pulled away. A microscopic shaft of light pierces the eternal darkness of the chamber. The air changes. The smell of the outside world, rich with ozone and pine and decay, floods into the sterile room. The nanitics move cautiously up the tunnel. They do not stride, they creep. They peek over the rim of the hole, their antennae waving furiously, tasting the vastness of the world. Imagine that moment of first contact, the rush of fresh air, the blinding brightness of the sun. It is a rebirth. The long siege of the claustral phase is over. The door is open. It invites you to feel that sensation of opening the curtains after a long illness, or stepping outside after a week of rain. The world is still there, waiting for you, vibrant and overwhelming and full of opportunity. The first mission of these tiny foragers is simple: find water. The queen is thirsty. And so, we drift with a nanitic worker as she navigates the mountainous terrain of a single pebble, moving toward a dewdrop resting on a blade of grass. To an ant, a drop of water is not a splash. It is a shimmering, cohesive sphere, held together by surface tension. It is a planet of liquid. When she approaches it, she does not drink like a dog. She touches her mouth to the side of the sphere. Visualize the physics of the water. The surface skin of the droplet bends but does not break. She must break the tension to drink. She sips, and the water flows into her, cool and revitalizing. But look at the droplet itself. It wobbles, reflecting the sky, a perfect, self-contained jewel. The ant interacts with the water with a delicacy that respects its surface. She drinks her fill, her abdomen swelling slightly, turning translucent. This is the nectar of life. Imagine the sensation of that cool, pure liquid entering a dry system, rehydrating the cells, waking up the body. It is simple, elemental, and deeply satisfying. The nanitic turns back, carrying this belly full of water to her mother in the dark. It is the first gift from the outside world, a liquid jewel carried down into the deep, signalling that the cycle of flow has begun again. The isolation is over. The connection is made. The river of life is flowing once more. And as that cool, revitalizing water is carried down into the deep, the nanitic worker joins the growing river of her sisters. You might imagine that a tunnel filled with thousands of blind, scurrying creatures would be a place of chaos, a tangle of legs and confusion. But as we drift closer to the flow of the colony, we see something remarkably soothing, a perfect, silent order. The ant tunnels are not just holes, they are 3-lane highways of cooperation. Visualize the traffic patterns of the underground. It is a system of fluid dynamics. The center lane is often reserved for those carrying heavy burdens, the hunters returning with food, or the workers carrying clumps of soil. They move with a steady, determined pace. The outer lanes, the shoulders of the tunnel, are for the faster, unburdened ants heading out to the surface. There are no traffic lights, no honking horns, only the gentle, tactile yielding of right-of-way. When two ants meet in a narrow passage, they do not fight. They touch antennae, a brief moment of connection, and the unburdened one presses herself flat against the wall, making herself small to let the heavy carrier pass. It is a world of constant deference and politeness. Imagine a life where everyone instinctively moves aside to make the journey easier for everyone else, a flowing current where the only rule is to help the flow continue. It is a relaxing vision of a society that moves like water, navigating obstacles with a collective intelligence that ensures no one is ever truly stuck. After navigating these bustling highways, the worker finds a quiet alcove to attend to a ritual we touched on briefly before, but one that deserves a deeper look: the grooming of the antennae. To an ant, the antenna is her eye, her ear, and her nose. If it becomes dirty, she is deaf and blind to the world. And so, nature has gifted her with a built-in tool, a piece of exquisite biological engineering attached to her own body. Look closely at the front leg of an ant. There, at the joint, is a specialized spur called the strigil. It looks remarkably like a fine-toothed comb or a curved brush. It is shaped perfectly to fit the curve of the antenna. Visualize the ant raising her leg, hooking the antenna into this crook, and pulling it through, again and again. It is a motion of rhythmic self-care. The strigil scrapes away every speck of dust, every pollen grain, leaving the sensory wand polished and sensitive. It is the equivalent of wiping your glasses until the world is crystal clear, or washing your face with cool water after a long day. There is a deep satisfaction in watching this process, a reminder of the pleasure of being clean, of maintaining the instruments of your perception. The ant does not rush this. She sits in the dark, pulling the comb through, ensuring that her connection to the universe remains pristine and unclouded. Once cleaned and ready, the ant may need to travel not just along the floor, but up the sheer, vertical face of a stone or a leaf. We often take for granted that insects can walk on walls, but the mechanism is a marvel of adhesion that defies gravity. It is not magic. It is the aureolia. Picture the foot of an ant. Between the hooked claws that grip the rough earth, there is a soft, balloon-like pad. When the ant steps onto a smooth surface, like the petal of a lily or the glass of a window, this pad inflates. It pumps full of fluid, expanding to press against the surface. But it does not just press, it secretes a microscopic layer of liquid, creating a capillary adhesion, a wet suction that holds the ant in place. Visualize this sensation, walking up a wall as easily as you walk on the floor, held safe by thousands of tiny wet suction cups. The concept of down ceases to matter. Gravity loses its hold on you. You're free to explore the ceiling, the underside of a leaf, the vertical world. It is a feeling of total stability. No matter how the world turns, you are grounded, stuck fast, secure in your footing. Even if the wind blows, the aureolia hold tight. It invites you to feel that same sense of unshakable grip, knowing that you cannot fall, that you're held in place by the very physics of your being. As the ant climbs higher, reaching the surface, she encounters the source of all energy, the sun. While her compound eyes see the world in a mosaic of movement and shape, she possesses another set of eyes that are often overlooked, ancient eyes that speak to the rhythm of the cosmos. These are the ocelli. If you were to look at the top of an ant's head, you would see 3 tiny jewel-like dots arranged in a triangle. These are not for seeing images, they are for seeing light. They are simple photoreceptors that track the position of the sun and the polarization of the sky. They are the ants' biological clock. Visualize these 3 small gems sensing the dawn long before the heat of the day arrives. They feel the shift in the light's angle. They tell the ant when it is noon, when the shadows are lengthening, and when the safety of the dusk is approaching. Even in the dim light of the forest floor, the ocelli are reading the sky. It is a direct line of communication with the heavens. Imagine having this third eye, this skylight on the roof of your mind, that keeps you perfectly synced with the turning of the planet. You do not need a watch. You feel the time in the light. You're attuned to the great slow breathing of the day and night, guided by the simple, steady signal of the sun. Guided by these sensors, the workers engage in a behavior that turns their own bodies into living batteries. On cool spring mornings, when the sun is bright but the air is crisp, you might see ants gathering on the surface of a flat rock or a log. They are not foraging, they are sunbasking. They spread their legs, flattening their bodies against the warm stone to maximize their surface area. They are soaking up the solar energy, drinking the heat. Their dark bodies absorb the photons, warming their internal fluids. Visualize this feeling, lying on a warm beach, the sun pressing its weight against your skin, a deep, penetrating warmth that thaws the chill in your bones. The ant enters a state of trance-like stillness. She is charging. She is filling herself with the golden fire of the star. It is a moment of pure reception, of simply being open to the warmth that is offered, letting it fill every corner of your being until you are glowing with stored heat. But this heat is not just for her. The colony is a place of sharing, and even warmth is a currency to be given away. Once the worker is thoroughly heated, she turns and descends back into the cool, dark tunnels. She runs to the nursery chambers where the white larvae are sleeping. Here, a beautiful thermal exchange takes place. The warm worker walks onto the pile of brood and presses her body against the cold larvae. She radiates the heat she collected from the sun, transferring it to the babies. She's a living hot water bottle. Visualize this wave of warmth travelling down from the surface. The sun's energy is carried packet by packet deep underground. The colony does not need fire, it has the love of the sisters. Imagine being one of those larvae, cold and dormant, and then feeling the gentle, radiating warmth of a sister pressing against you, bringing the summer sun down into the dark to help you grow. It is a hug that transfers life. It is a reminder that we can carry the light with us, that we can warm others simply by being near them, sharing the energy we have gathered in our own moments of light. While some ants bring heat, others bring the harvest. We drift now to the vast golden fields of the harvester ants. These are the millers of the insect world, the bakers of the underground. While other ants hunt or milk aphids, the harvester ant collects seeds. But a seed is hard, locked in a shell, impossible to eat. So they must process it. Deep in the dry granary chambers of the nest, the workers engage in a rhythmic hypnotic labour. They take the seeds of grass and wild wheat and chew them. They use their powerful mandibles to crush the shells and grind the kernels. They mix the flour with their own saliva, creating a soft, dough-like paste known as ant bread. Visualize this underground bakery. There is a smell of grain, of starch, of earthy abundance. The sound is a low, scratching grind, like a stone mill turning slowly. The bread is stored in the dark, a reserve of carbohydrates that will sustain the colony through the winter. It is a process of transformation, taking something hard and unyielding and turning it into something soft and nourishing. It invites you to think of the seeds in your own life, the hard problems or the raw ideas, and imagine gently grinding them down, working them with patience until they become soft, digestible, and useful. It is the slow, satisfying work of preparation, turning the harvest into sustenance. But where there is consumption, there is waste. And in the pristine city of the ant, waste is not something to be ignored. It is something to be managed with reverence. You travel to the edge of the colony to a designated chamber or a specific outdoor zone known as the midden. This is the compost heap, but it is not a pile of trash. It is a library of the past. Here, the ants place the empty seed husks, the inedible parts of insects, and the old exoskeletons of their sisters who have passed away. It is organised. The ants carefully stack the refuse, keeping the main living areas spotless. In some species, the midden is turned and aerated to promote decomposition, returning the nutrients to the soil. Visualize this site not as a place of rot, but as a place of return. It is where things go when they are finished. It is a relaxing concept, the idea that there is a specific place for the things you no longer need. You can carry your burdens to the midden and leave them there. You can deposit the husks of your old worries, the shells of your past mistakes, and walk away. The colony keeps the living rooms clean by honouring the midden. It allows you to mentally declutter, sweeping the dust of the mind into a neat pile, leaving the centre of your consciousness clear and open. In this clear, open space, we sometimes encounter a creature that seems to disappear before our eyes. The ghost ant, or Tapinoma melanocephalum, possesses a body so pale and translucent that it is almost invisible. The abdomen and legs are like glass. But here is the wonder. Because her skin is clear, she takes on the colour of whatever she eats. If she drinks purple grape nectar, she becomes a wandering purple jewel. If she drinks clear sugar water, she vanishes into the background. If she drinks green honeydew, she glows emerald. Visualize a line of these tiny ghosts moving across a kitchen counter or a tropical leaf. They are like moving droplets of water. They are defined entirely by what they consume. It is a profound transparency. There is no hiding what is inside, because the inside is the outside. It is a beautiful ethereal image, to be so light, so unburdened by a heavy physical form that you become a vessel for colour and light. Imagine yourself becoming this light, dissolving your heavy edges until you're just a shimmering outline, taking on the colours of the dreams you're about to dream, fluid and clear as water. As the ant ages, her role in this transparent society shifts. We end this stream with the concept of the career path, or temporal polyethism. In the human world, we often fear aging, seeing it as a decline. But for the ant, aging is a journey toward the light. When a worker is born, she is young and soft. Her duties are deep underground, in the safest, darkest chambers, caring for the queen and the brood. She is the nurse. As she ages, she moves upwards. She becomes a builder, working on the tunnels. Then she becomes a guard near the entrance. Finally, in her oldest and wisest stage, she becomes a forager. She steps out into the sun. She faces the wind and the rain. The most dangerous job is reserved for the oldest, not because they are expendable, but because they are the most experienced. They have lived a full life in the dark and now they earn the sky. Visualize this ascent. Your life is not a descent into weakness. It is a climb from the deep protected centre out toward the vast expanding horizon. The older you get, the further you can travel. The older you get, the more light you are allowed to see. It is a comforting reframing of time. You're moving through the chambers of experience, and your final destination is not the end, but the open air, the sun, and the great wide world. Rest in the knowledge that you're exactly where you need to be on this ladder, safe in your chamber, preparing for the light that comes later. And as that experienced forager steps into the light, earning her place in the vast, bright world, we must pause to consider how she actually perceives this brilliance. We see a seamless panorama of shapes and colours, but the ant sees a masterpiece of pointillism. She views the universe through the compound eye. Visualize the surface of her eye, not as a single smooth lens, but as a faceted jewel, a dome composed of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of tiny hexagonal lenses called ommatidia. Each one of these lenses is a solitary window capturing its own tiny fragment of the light. It is a mosaic vision. Imagine standing in front of a stained glass window, where each pane of glass holds a slightly different view of the garden outside. The The ant's brain takes these thousands of fragmented images and stitches them together into a coherent whole. She does not see the sharp, high-definition details that we do. She sees a shimmering, pixelated world where movement is everything. A blade of grass swaying is not just a green line, it is a ripple of changing light across a grid of sensors. This way of seeing invites us to soften our own focus. We often strain to see the sharp edges of our problems, to analyse the fine print of our lives. But the ant invites you to blur your vision, to let the world dissolve into soft shapes and rhythmic movements, seeing the forest not as a collection of trees, but as a washing wave of green and shadow. It is an impressionistic way of being, where the vibe and the motion matter more than the details, but there is a layer of light in this mosaic that is invisible to us, a secret spectrum that paints the sky in colours we cannot name. The ant possesses receptors that are sensitive to ultraviolet light. When she looks up at the dull grey clouds, she sees a beacon. To an ant, the sun is not just a bright spot. It is a paintbrush that streaks the sky with patterns of polarised UV light. Flowers that look plain white to us may glow with ultraviolet runways to her, guiding her to the nectar like landing lights on a runway. The world is marked with hidden signs. Visualize walking through a landscape where the air itself is glowing with secret instructions. You do not need to worry about where to go because the path is written in the light itself. The sky is a map. The flowers are shouting in colours of neon purple and electric blue that only you can see. It suggests that there is more to reality than what is immediately obvious, that there are guiding lights and hidden beauty surrounding us right now, if only we had the eyes to see them. Rest in the mystery of the invisible, knowing that even in the greyest sky, there is a hidden rainbow guiding the way. To process this complex, multifaceted, ultraviolet world, one would assume the ant needs a massive computer. Yet, her brain is smaller than a grain of salt. Do not let the size deceive you. Within that tiny speck lies one of the most dense and efficient neural networks in the animal kingdom. We float now into the mushroom bodies. This is the name scientists have given to the learning centres of the insect brain, due to their peculiar shape. Packed within the ant's head are 250,000 neurons, wired together with a complexity that rivals a supercomputer. This is not a mindless automaton. This is a creature capable of learning, remembering, and making decisions. Visualize this microscopic hub of consciousness. It is a universe in a grain of sand. The density of thought here is staggering. She remembers the scent of a specific flower from 3 days ago. She remembers the number of steps to the landmark. She remembers the face of her enemy. Imagine the efficiency of this, to be so small, yet so capable. It reminds us that wisdom does not require a large space. You do not need a big life, a big house, or a loud voice to possess deep understanding. You can be small, quiet, and contained, yet hold a universe of knowledge within the secret, folded chambers of your own mind. It is a celebration of the inner world, compact and complete. This preference for the compact and the efficient is perfectly mirrored in the homes of the Temnothorax ants. While some build sprawling cities in the dirt, these ants are the minimalists of the forest. They seek out the perfect ready-made fortress, the acorn. Picture an old oak tree dropping its fruit onto the soft moss of the forest floor. A squirrel nibbles one and leaves it behind, or perhaps a beetle bores a small hole and moves on. The acorn lies there, a hollow wooden shell. The ant queen finds this abandoned nut and moves in. Visualize the interior of the acorn. The walls are thick, curved wood smelling of tannins and old oak. It is a single-room cabin, perfectly round and smooth. The colony that lives here is small, perhaps only 100 sisters. They live in a cosy, huddled intimacy. The acorn is their entire world. It protects them from the rain, the crushing footfalls of larger animals, and the wind. When the winter comes, the acorn is buried under the snow, a tiny, warm capsule of life. Imagine the feeling of living inside a nut, the ultimate tiny home. It is simple, sturdy, and safe. You are wrapped in wood, a natural armour that fell from the sky. It invites you to shrink your own needs, to find comfort in a small, defined space, to curl up inside the shell of the moment and feel the thick wooden walls protecting you from the outside. But how do ants, whether in an acorn or a massive mound, know how to build without a blueprint? There is no foreman shouting orders, no architect with a drawing. The answer lies in a mesmerising phenomenon called stigmergy. Stigmergy is the principle of indirect coordination. It simply means the work stimulates more work. An ant does not know she is building a cathedral. She only knows one simple rule. If I see a pellet of mud here, I should place another pellet on top of it. Visualize a worker carrying a grain of dirt. She wanders until she finds a small pile that another sister started. The pile itself is the signal. She adds her grain. A third sister sees the slightly larger pile and adds hers. Slowly, a pillar rises. If two pillars are close enough, the ants sense the gap and begin to bridge it, creating an arch. This is the flow of the invisible architect. The structure emerges from the collective, moment-by-moment actions of the individuals. Imagine the relief of this. You do not need to see the grand plan. You do not need to know how the roof will look when it is finished. You only need to place your one small brick today. The outcome will take care of itself. The cathedral builds itself through the simple, trusting act of adding one small piece to what is already there. It is a philosophy of faith in the process, a relaxation into the idea that the small steps we take are naturally building something beautiful, even if we cannot yet see the shape of it. As the colony builds and lives, it must also deal with the inevitable end of life. In the close quarters of the nest, hygiene is life. We spoke of the midden earlier, but let us look closer at the specific signal that guides the undertakers. It is the scent of silence, or more scientifically, oleic acid. When an ant's life force fades and she passes away, her body begins to break down. Within a day or two, released fatty acids create a specific invisible perfume. This scent does not trigger grief or panic in her sisters. It triggers a gentle, robotic instinct to carry. Visualize a worker smelling this signal. She picks up the fallen sister with a tenderness that looks like an embrace. She carries her to the cemetery chamber or the outdoor midden. It is a silent procession. Interestingly, if you were to dab a drop of oleic acid on a living, healthy ant, her sisters would pick her up and carry her to the graveyard. The living ant would not struggle. She would simply wait until the scent wore off and then walk back. There is something strangely peaceful about this chemical certainty. Death is not a tragedy here. It is just a change in scent. It is a signal to be moved from the active pile to the resting pile. It is a part of the great organisation of the earth. Imagine a world where everything has its place, and when your time for activity is done, you are gently carried to a place of rest by those who love you, guided by the chemistry of nature itself. While the scent of oleic acid signals rest, other scents signal war, or rather a chemical fortress. We drift to the pine forests again to visit the wood ants, the masters of chemical artillery. These ants do not have stingers. Instead, they possess a gland that sprays formic acid. This is the smell of vinegar, sharp, clean, and piercing. If a predator attacks the mound, the ants stand tall, curl their abdomens forward, and spray this acid into the air. It creates a cloud of chemical defense. But visualize this not as a weapon, but as a cleansing mist. Formic acid is a potent antibiotic. The wood ants are constantly fumigating their home. Their nest smells like a clean, sterile laboratory hidden in the rotting wood. It keeps the bacteria and the mold at bay. Imagine standing in a cloud of this sharp, zesty mist. It clears the sinuses, it purifies the air. It is a barrier of freshness. It reminds us of the power of setting boundaries, of creating an atmosphere around ourselves that is too sharp for negativity to enter. You can spray your own mental mist, a cleansing acid that burns away the rot and leaves only the preserved clean centre of your peace. High above this chemical fortress, in the canopy of the tropical rainforest, a different kind of defense is taking place, one of aerodynamics. We tend to think of ants as ground-bound, but the cephalotes ants, the gliders, have turned falling into an art form. Picture a worker ant foraging on a branch 100 feet in the air. A sudden gust of wind knocks her off. For a normal creature, this would be a disaster, lost on the forest floor, miles from home. But this ant does not panic. She is a skydiver. She spreads her legs wide, turning her body into a parachute. She catches the air, but she doesn't just fall straight down. She steers. She possesses an innate visual lock on the tree trunk, the dark vertical line against the bright forest. She tilts her body, gliding in a controlled J-shaped swoosh, spiraling back toward the tree. Visualize this silent, controlled descent. She is surfing the air. She lands with a soft tap on the bark of the very tree she fell from, often just a few feet below where she slipped. She simply shakes herself off and starts climbing again. It is a masterful recovery. It tells us that falling is not failing. It is just a different way of moving. You can steer your fall. You can turn a mistake into a graceful glide, catching the air currents and landing softly back on the path, safe and sound. Sometimes the danger is not the air, but the water. In the floodplains of the Amazon, the fire ants face seasonal deluges that turn the world into an ocean. They cannot glide and they cannot dig, so they weave the unsinkable raft. When the water rises, the colony flows out of the ground and onto the surface. They grip one another's legs, tarsus to tarsus. They weave a fabric of bodies. But the magic lies in the texture of their skin. Their bodies are water repellent, hydrophobic. When they link together, they trap millions of tiny air bubbles between them. Visualize this living island floating on the brown, swirling water. It is dry on top. The queen sits safely in the center. Even the ants on the bottom layer, the hull of the boat, are not drowning. They are breathing from the thin layer of trapped air, the plastron that surrounds the raft. They rotate positions, taking turns being the boat and being the passenger. It is a structure made of trust. No single ant can float alone, but together they are a cork. They bob gently on the waves, riding out the storm. Imagine the sensation of being part of this raft, linked securely to your neighbours, holding on tight, feeling the water push against you but never breaking through. You are buoyant. You are lifted by the collective. The flood cannot touch you because you are held up by 1,000 hands. Finally, we must touch the material that makes all of this possible, the substance that forms the raft, the glider's wing, the acorn dweller's shield. It is chitin. This is the molecule of the exoskeleton. It is a long-chain polysaccharide similar to the cellulose in plants, but stronger, more flexible. It is the natural plastic of the insect world. It is what makes the ant shine. Visualize the texture of an ant. It is polished, smooth, and hard. It is a suit of armor that is grown, not worn. It is a skeleton on the outside. Imagine the feeling of having your bones on the outside protecting your soft, vulnerable interior. Nothing can scratch you. The thorns cannot pierce you. The sun cannot dry you out. When an ant taps her leg against a stone, it makes a tiny microscopic click. It is the sound of chitin. It is a material that is both glass and sugar, a biological shield that glimmers in the sun. As you drift deeper into sleep, imagine yourself encased in a thin, weightless layer of chitin. You are safe inside this shell. The worries of the world simply bounce off the hard, polished surface. You are contained, preserved, and armoured against the night, a perfect, gleaming statue of peace resting in the velvet dark. But even this perfect armour, this polished shield of chitin that gleams in the darkness, is not a permanent cage. There comes a moment in the life of every young ant when the armour becomes too tight, a moment when the self has outgrown the shell. This is the process of ecdysis, the silent miracle of molting. It is a time of profound vulnerability and ultimate renewal. Visualize the young ant deep in the safety of the burrow. She begins to feel the pressure of her own growth. The old skin, once her protection, is now a constraint. She does not fight it, she succumbs to the process. Her body releases fluid that separates the old hard shell from the new, soft skin forming underneath. Then, with a gentle, rhythmic pulsing of her body, the old armour splits down the back. Imagine the sensation of slipping out of a tight, heavy coat after a long winter journey. She pulls her legs, one by one, out of the old casings. She withdraws her antennae, pulling them free like swords from a sheath. It is a slow, careful extraction. When she emerges, she is not the dark, hardened creature she will become. She is a callow ant, pale, soft, and almost white. She is a ghost of her future self. In this state, she is utterly defenseless, soft as a petal. Her sisters surround her, touching her gently, protecting her while she rests. It is a reminder that in order to grow, we must be willing to become soft again. We must be willing to shed the defences that no longer fit us, exposing our tender, new selves to the world, trusting that we are safe enough to expand. As she rests in this callow state, waiting for her new skin to harden and darken into the familiar obsidian or amber, a silent river flows within her. We often think of blood as red and confined to veins, pumping fiercely, but the ant possesses a circulation that is more like the tides of an ocean. This is the flow of hemolymph. Picture the interior of the ant not as a complex plumbing system of tubes, but as a single, open cavern. The hemolymph, a clear or pale yellow fluid, washes freely over her organs. It bathes her brain, her muscles, and her stomach in a cool, nutritive bath. There is no high pressure here, only a gentle hydraulic sloshing. Visualize this internal sea. It carries the nutrients from the social stomach to the rest of the body, and it carries away the waste. It is a hemocoel, a blood cavity. Imagine your own energy flowing this way, not restricted to narrow channels, but washing over you in a holistic, encompassing wave. It is a soothing, cooling sensation, a liquid embrace that holds everything inside together. It reminds us of the interconnectedness of our own inner workings, where every part is bathed in the same life-giving essence, floating in a sea of calm sustenance. Propelling this gentle tide is a heart that looks nothing like the human heart. It is not a fist that beats. It is a tube that ripples. Running along the entire length of the ant's back, just beneath the armour, is the dorsal vessel. Visualize a long, slender tube, open at the ends. It pulses with a peristaltic rhythm, a wave of contraction that starts at the abdomen and rolls forward to the head. Ripple, pause. Ripple, pause. It pushes the hemolymph forward, washing the brain in fresh fluid, before the liquid drifts slowly back through the body to be pumped again. There is a hypnotic cadence to this dorsal heart. It is the metronome of the insect world. It does not thud, it undulates. Imagine lying on your back and feeling a gentle wave rolling up your spine, a slow, rhythmic massage that pushes vitality from your core to your mind. It is a mechanism of pure simplicity. The ant does not struggle to keep its heart beating. The rhythm is woven into its structure. It invites you to tune into your own slow rhythms, the quiet pulses that happen without your command, the automatic waves of life that keep you moving forward. Covering the surface of this newly hardened body, rising from the pores of the chitin, are thousands of microscopic sensors. To the naked eye, an ant looks smooth, but under the lens of a dream, she is covered in a field of setae. These are not hairs for warmth, they are hairs for feeling the wind of the universe. Picture a field of golden wheat swaying in the breeze. This is the landscape of the ant's back. Each hair is a tactile receiver, wired directly to the nervous system. Some are sensitive to touch, triggering a response if a tunnel wall is too close. Others are trichobothria, incredibly fine hairs that detect the movement of air particles. Visualize the ant standing still yet feeling the approach of a friend simply by the displacement of the air. She feels the shape of the wind. She feels the vibration of a footstep meters away as a shudder in the air currents. This creates a sphere of awareness around her. She's never surprised, because she feels the world touching her long before it arrives. Imagine possessing this sensitivity, a soft, golden aura of awareness that lets you feel the currents of the room, the mood of the space, without ever having to look. It is a state of being perfectly connected to the atmosphere, reading the invisible braille of the air. This sensitivity allows for grace, but the anatomy allows for flexibility. Between the thorax and the abdomen, the ant possesses a feature that makes her distinct from almost all other insects: the petiole. This is the waist of the ant, a thin, specialized node that acts as a universal joint. Visualize a hinge made of polished biological steel. It allows the abdomen to swing freely, to curl under, or to lift high. This articulation is what gives the ant her agility. Without it, she would be stiff and rigid. Because of this pivot point, she can bend her body almost in half to clean the tip of her abdomen, or to sting a predator, or to fit through a twisting tunnel. Picture the freedom of movement this allows. It is the biological equivalent of a ball and socket joint, a pivot of pure potential. It reminds us of the importance of being flexible in the middle. When life is heavy on one side and rigid on the other, the ability to pivot, to bend, to adjust our center of gravity is what keeps us moving. The petiole is the fulcrum of balance. It invites you to feel a looseness in your own waist, a release of tension in the center of your body, allowing you to move with the fluid, articulated grace of the ant. With this flexibility, the young ant is finally ready to leave the nest. But the world above is a vast and confusing chaos of light and scent. How does she ensure she can find the door again? She performs a ritual known as the learning walk. Visualize the young forager stepping out of the dark hole and into the blinding light. She does not run, she stops. She turns around to face the entrance. She walks a small semicircle, her eyes fixed on the image of home. She's taking a snapshot. She widens the arc, walking a larger loop, pausing to look back at the nest from a different angle. She's memorizing the skyline, the shape of the grass blade, the jagged edge of the rock, the silhouette of the tree against the sky. She pirouettes, turning back again and again to anchor the image of safety in her mind. This is a beautiful, deliberate pause. She is knitting the location of her sanctuary into her brain before she ventures into the unknown. Imagine doing this in your own life, before stepping out into a new dream or a new day, pausing to look back at your safe place, memorizing the feeling of comfort so that you can always find your way back. It is the ritual of the return, performed before the journey even begins. Once she has memorized the door, she steps out into the wilderness. But she does not just wander, she counts. We drift now to the internal odometer of the ant. In the featureless desert where smells evaporate and wind blows away the trail, the ant relies on path integration. She is literally counting her steps. She tracks the distance she has travelled and the angle of every turn. It is a mathematical trance. If you were to pick her up and move her, she would run exactly the distance needed to get home from her original spot, and then start searching. Visualize this internal rhythm: 1, 2, 1, 2. It is a steady, subconscious beat that plays in the background of her work. It gives her a tether of certainty. No matter how far she zigzags, she's constantly calculating the straight line home. It is a vector of safety. Imagine having this certainty inside you, a compass that knows exactly how far you've gone and exactly how to get back, not by looking at a map, but simply by listening to the rhythm of your own journey. You're always calculated, you're always located, you're never truly lost, only counting the steps until the return. After a long day of counting steps, of hauling seeds, of reading the wind with golden hairs, the ant must rest. And here we find a behaviour that bridges the gap between the insect and the human, the posture of sleep. Ants do not just stop moving, they curl up. We zoom into a quiet chamber, away from the traffic of the main tunnels. Here, a worker prepares for a deep rest. She draws her legs in tight against her body, reducing her footprint. She lowers her head. but the most telling sign is the antennae. These constant waving wands of sensation finally stop. She folds them back, tucking them neatly against her head or thorax. It is the act of shutting the eyes of her chemical sense. She is closing the blinds. Visualize this folding inward. The constant stream of data, the smells, the vibrations, the chemical signals, is silenced. She creates a bubble of quiet around herself. In this state, her metabolic rate drops, her breathing slows. She enters a state of torpor. Imagine the relief of folding your own antennae, of withdrawing your senses from the noise of the world, curling into a tight, safe ball of self-contained peace. It is the ultimate permission to disconnect, to retract your senses, and to simply exist in the quiet hum of your own being. And in this quiet, sometimes we see the young ones waking up not to work but to practice. We often think of insects as robots, but biology suggests a spark of something else: play. In the safety of the nest, young ants have been observed engaging in mock battles. They grapple with one another, mandibles open but not biting, wrestling and tumbling over the floor. They pull legs without hurting. They pin each other down and then release. Visualize this tumble of energy. It is the training ground for life, but it looks like joy. It is roughhousing in the safety of the living room. It serves a purpose, honing reflexes, testing strength. But for a moment, it is simply movement for the sake of movement. It is a reminder that even in a life of serious duty, there is room for the tumble, for the gentle wrestle, for the testing of boundaries with a friend. It creates a bond between sisters that is stronger than just chemical signals. It is a bond of shared experience, of touch, of the memory of playing together in the dark safety of the nursery. Finally, as we watch these sisters play, we notice that they are not all the same. We end this stream with the concept of polymorphism, the beautiful diversity of the self. In many colonies, sisters born of the same mother are radically different in size and shape, designed for different dreams. There are the minims, the tiny nurses we met earlier, small enough to ride a leaf. There are the medias, the generalists, the size of what we think of as a normal ant. And then there are the majors, the soldiers. Visualize a major standing next to a minim. She's a giant, perhaps 10 times the size of her small sister. Her head is massive, filled with powerful muscles. Her jaws are like hydraulic crushers, yet she is gentle. The tiny sister can walk underneath the major's legs without even ducking. They live in harmony. The major does not rule the minim, she protects her. The minim does not envy the major, she cleans her. It is a society where your physical form determines your gift, but not your worth. Imagine a world where all shapes are necessary, where the small are celebrated for their delicacy and the large for their strength, and they fit together like puzzle pieces. You can be the small, quiet part of yourself, or the large, strong part of yourself, and both are welcome in the colony. You're a multitude. You're the nurse and the soldier, the tiny rider and the giant carrier, all living together in the one great diverse house of your soul. And just as the colony embraces the different shapes of its sisters, welcoming the giant soldier and the tiny nurse into the same family, nature has also seen fit to dress them in raiment of breathtaking beauty. We drift now from the architecture of the body to the texture of the surface, to a creature that seems to have walked out of a jeweler's dream, the golden spiny ant. Visualize a creature moving through the dappled sunlight of the Australian bush. At first glance, she appears to be made of metal. Her exoskeleton is not merely black or brown. It is covered in a dense, luxurious coat of microscopic hairs that shimmer with the luster of 24-karat gold. She is a living nugget, a mobile artifact of precious metal. Imagine the sunlight catching the curve of her thorax, igniting a flare of metallic yellow. As she turns, the light ripples across her back like a wave of molten gold. This is not vanity. This golden fleece is a shield, reflecting the harsh radiation of the sun, keeping the cool darkness of her interior safe. Visualize yourself touching this surface. It looks hard like metal, but it is soft like velvet. It is a texture of supreme luxury. To watch a line of these ants marching is to watch a river of gold dust flowing over the grey bark of a eucalyptus tree. It invites you to feel a sense of value in your own existence, to imagine your own skin glowing with a protective, radiant light, armoured in gold, precious and impervious to the heat of the day. This appreciation for the precious things of the earth is not unique to the golden ant. Deep in the arid deserts of the American Southwest, there are colonies of harvester ants that act as the original prospectors. They are the miners of the mesas. In their endless quest to excavate their tunnels, they dig deep into the geological history of the soil, bypassing the dirt to find heavier, more solid objects to reinforce their mounds, and what they find are garnets. Visualize a large, flat mound of sand in the middle of a beige desert. But scattered across the top of this mound, glistening in the fierce sun, are hundreds of tiny red gemstones. These are anthill garnets. The ants have carried them up from the depths one by one, choosing them for their weight and their hardness. They pave their roof with rubies. Imagine the aesthetic contrast, the dry, dusty earth and the flashing deep crimson of the stones. The ants walk over this carpet of jewels without greed. To them, the stones are simply functional, a way to keep the roof from blowing away. But to us, it is a treasure chest spilled open. Visualize the feeling of discovering such a place, a secret hoard of beauty hidden in the wasteland. It suggests that deep within the seemingly dry and ordinary parts of our minds, there are gems waiting to be brought to the surface. You have a mine of garnets inside you, and with patient, slow work you can bring them up to the light, paving your life with the durable, beautiful stones of your own inner wisdom. From the dry, gem-studded desert we float upwards, carried by the humid breeze into the canopy of the Amazon rainforest. Here, the ground is so far away it might as well be another planet. The ants here cannot dig in the soil, so they must create their own earth in the sky. We encounter the concept of the ant garden. Visualize a ball of soil the size of a basketball, suspended high in the branches of a tree, swaying gently in the wind. This is not a natural formation. It is a hanging city built grain by grain. The ants carry dirt up the tree trunk, mixing it with seeds they have collected, seeds of orchids, bromeliads, and trailing vines. As the colony grows inside the dirt ball, the seeds germinate. Roots weave through the nest, acting as living rebar, holding the soil together. Green leaves burst from the surface, creating a cascading garden of flowers and vines. The ants live inside the root ball, protected by the plants they planted. Imagine the synergy of this floating island. The ants provide the soil and fertilizer. The plants provide the structure and the sugar. It is a self-contained ecosystem hovering in the air. Visualize yourself resting in such a garden, suspended between the earth and the sky, surrounded by the scent of orchids and damp earth, held safe by a web of living roots. It is a sanctuary of growth, a reminder that you can build your own garden anywhere, even in thin air, if you're patient enough to carry the soil and plant the seeds of your own comfort. In this vertical world of the rainforest, there are plants that offer more than just roots. They offer a challenge that seems impossible. We drift to the slippery, treacherous rim of a pitcher plant. For most insects, this plant is a tomb. Its walls are coated in a slippery wax, and at the bottom lies a pool of digestive enzymes, a watery grave for the clumsy. But the diving ant, Camponotus schmitzi, sees this trap as a swimming pool. These ants have evolved to live inside the hollow stem of the plant. But more impressively, they dive into the digestive fluid to forage. Visualize the dark, cool interior of the pitcher. The fluid is still and deadly to others, but the diving ant slides down the waxen walls with confidence. She enters the liquid. She does not dissolve. She swims. She is hunting the other insects that have fallen in. She is the master of the forbidden zone. Picture her sleek body moving through the enzyme bath, protected by her own chemistry, fearless in the face of digestion. She retrieves food from the bottom and climbs back out, sharing the bounty with her colony. It is a triumph of adaptation. It tells us that what is toxic to others can be sustenance to us if we are prepared. You can swim through the heavy emotions, the digestive acids of life, and emerge unharmed, cleaner and stronger, having found nourishment in the deep end where no one else dares to go. This ability to survive injury and danger brings us to a profound revelation about the care within a colony. We often think of ants as expendable soldiers, but in the case of the Matabele ant, we find the world's first paramedics. These ants hunt termites, a dangerous prey that fights back with crushing jaws. The battle is fierce, and many ants are injured, losing legs or suffering cuts, but they are not left behind. When the battle is over, the injured ants curl up and release a pheromone that signals distress. Their sisters, the medics, come to them. They gently inspect the wounds. If the ant can stand, the medic guides her home. If she cannot, the medic picks her up and carries her. Back in the nest, the treatment begins. Visualize a quiet infirmary chamber. The medic ant uses her mandibles and tongue to lick the wound of the injured sister. This is not just cleaning. Her saliva contains antibiotics and coagulants. She treats the injury for minutes, sometimes hours. Because of this care, nearly 90% of the injured ants recover and return to duty. Visualize this tenderness, the warrior returning broken, being carried by a friend, and then tended to with a healing touch in the safety of the dark. It is a deeply soothing image of restoration. It reminds us that our wounds are not the end of us. There is help. There is healing. We can be carried, we can be treated, and we can rise again, made whole by the care of those around us. This exchange of saliva and care hints at a deeper, more primal form of sharing that exists in some ancient species. We drift now to a concept that sounds frightening but is actually a gentle cycle of life. The relationship of the Dracula ant. In these colonies, the adult ants cannot chew solid food. Their waists are too thin to allow solids to pass. They can only drink. So they bring protein-rich prey to their larvae, the white worm-like babies we saw earlier. The larvae have powerful jaws and big stomachs. They chew and digest the food. Then, in a quiet, rhythmic ritual, the adult ant gently nips the skin of the larva. The larva does not struggle. It is a part of the process. It releases a drop of hemolymph, its own blood, rich with processed nutrients. The adult drinks this drop. It is a non-destructive cannibalism, a social circulatory system. Visualize this not as violence, but as a loop of energy. The adults protect and feed the young digest and feed the adults. It is a closed circuit of survival. The larva is a living stomach for the colony. It creates a feeling of absolute interdependence. No one can survive alone. The strength of the adult comes from the child, and the safety of the child comes from the adult. It is a reminder of the ancient exchanges that bind us, the giving and taking of a life force that keeps the circle unbroken and the energy flowing. While some ants rely on their young for food, others rely on a completely different species for their labour. We float to the territory of the Amazon ants, the so-called slave makers, though perhaps kidnappers is a more accurate term. These ants are incredibly beautiful, possessed of sleek red bodies and mandibles that are shaped like curved scimitars. But these jaws are a curse. They are so specialized for fighting that they cannot pick up food. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot groom their own young. If left alone, a colony of Amazon queens would starve in a room full of sugar. So, they steal the pupae of another species, usually the humble wood ant. When these stolen pupae hatch in the Amazon nest, they do not know they are captives. They look around, see the red queens, and assume this is their family. They begin to work. They forage, they clean, they feed the red masters. Visualize this mixed family. The red warrior ants resting, their beautiful, useless jaws shining, while the smaller, darker ants bustle around them, providing all the care. It is a strange, frozen harmony. The slaves are not unhappy. They are simply fulfilling their instinct to care, directed at the wrong target. It is a relaxing, if bizarre, image of total service. The Amazon ant has surrendered all capability of self-care to rely entirely on the kindness of strangers. It invites us to consider the parts of ourselves that are sharp and useless for daily life, and how they must be supported by the humble, working parts of our psyche that know how to feed and clean and keep the house of the mind in order. The shape of the body dictates the destiny. We have seen the scimitar jaws, but now let us look at the other end of the ant, to the abdomen of the chromatogaster ant. These are the valentine ants. When these small, shiny ants are threatened or excited, they do not crouch. They raise their abdomens up over their heads. Because of the unique shape of their gaster, which is pointed and heart-shaped, they look like they are offering a tiny black heart to the sky. Visualize a line of these ants walking along a branch. As a shadow passes over them, they all stop and raise their hearts in unison. It is a warning pose. They can exude a repellent drop of venom from the tip, but to the eye, it looks like a salute of love. Picture this field of tiny hearts, a biological valentine displayed on the bark of a tree. It is a defense mechanism that looks like an offering. It suggests that even in our defense there can be beauty. Even when we are setting a boundary, saying do not come closer, we can do so with a shape that speaks of the heart. It is a gentle warning, a raising of the shield that is also a symbol of the center of life. But sometimes, a warning is not enough. Sometimes, the only way to protect the colony is to give everything. We drift to the mangrove forests of Borneo to witness the ultimate act of the Colobopsis saundersi, the exploding ant. This ant has a body filled with 2 oversized glands that run the entire length of her sides. They are filled with a bright, sticky yellow secretion. If an enemy attacks the nest and the ant cannot stop them, she contracts her abdominal muscles with such intensity that she ruptures her own exoskeleton. She does not explode like a bomb, she bursts like a dam. The yellow glue erupts from her body, instantly entangling the enemy, trapping them in a sticky, permanent embrace. The ant dies, but the tunnel is sealed. The enemy is stopped. Visualize this not as a violent end, but as a release. The yellow glue is a substance of pure preservation. It is the ultimate letting go. The ant holds nothing back. She turns her entire physical form into a barrier of safety for her sisters. It is a profound, quiet sacrifice. It creates a moment of stillness where the threat is neutralized by the sheer force of giving. It invites you to release your own pent-up energy, not to destroy, but to seal away the things that threaten your peace, letting the glue of your intention trap the negativity and stop it in its tracks, leaving the rest of the colony safe and undisturbed. Finally, we drift from the immediate sacrifice of the moment to the eternal preservation of the deep past. We float backward in time, millions of years, to a pine forest in the Eocene epoch. A worker ant, perhaps an ancestor of the ones we've seen, is walking down a tree trunk. She steps into a golden, sticky drop of resin. She struggles for a moment, and then she is still. The resin flows over her, warm and thick. It seals her off from the air, from the bacteria, from the decay of time. It hardens. It falls into the river, is buried by silt, and sleeps for 40 million years. Visualize this piece of amber today, held in the hand of a dreamer. The stone is warm to the touch, glowing with an inner honey-coloured light. Inside, suspended in perfect clarity, is the ant. She's not dead in the traditional sense. She's paused. Every hair on her legs, every facet of her compound eye, is exactly as it was the moment she stopped. She's a traveller from deep time. She's a message in a bottle sent from the ancient world. Visualize the peace of this suspension, to be held so perfectly, to be protected from the rot and the ruin of the ages encased in gold. It is the ultimate sleep. It is a preservation of the self that lasts forever. As you lie in your bed, imagine that the air around you is turning into this warm golden light, thickening, slowing down, wrapping you in a protective amber that holds you safe, preserving this moment of rest, keeping you still and perfect and timeless. And held within that amber silence, frozen in a golden moment of eternity, the ant carries a secret. It is a secret not just of her own body, but of a culture she was sworn to protect. We drift now from the preservation of the individual to the preservation of the civilization, witnessing one of the most tender acts of foresight in the animal kingdom, the queen's dowry. Visualize a young leaf-cutter queen preparing to leave her mother's nest for her nuptial flight. She knows she will never return. She knows she must build a new world alone in the dark, but she cannot start from nothing. Before she flies, she visits the colony's central garden, that massive, spongy white fungus we explored earlier. Carefully, delicately, she takes a tiny piece of this fungus, no larger than a grain of sand, and tucks it into a special pouch inside her mouth, the infrabuccal pocket. This is her dowry. It is the seed of her society. She carries the living culture of her ancestors, a biological flame that must not go out. Visualize her flying through the dangerous sky, mating, and then digging her claustrophobic chamber in the earth, all while guarding this tiny, soft treasure in her cheek. When she's sealed in the dark, she spits it out. She tends to it. She fertilizes it with her own waste. She watches it grow from a speck into a fuzz, and from a fuzz into a garden. It is a profound image of stewardship. She is the ark carrying the essential wisdom of the past into the uncertain future. It invites us to consider what small, essential truths we carry within us, what seeds of our own history we keep safe in the pockets of our souls, ready to be planted when we find our own quiet place to build. This act of tending to a growing thing connects the ant deeply to the floral world. While they are farmers of fungus, they are also the midwives of the flower. In the cool, early spring gardens of the temperate world, there is a flower, the peony, that cannot fully open without the help of the ant. Picture the tight, spherical bud of a peony. It is heavy, green, and sealed shut. The petals are trapped inside, held prisoner by a thick, sticky nectar that acts like a biological glue. The flower is waiting. It cannot burst forth on its own. Then the ants arrive. They are attracted by the sugar in the glue. Visualize them climbing the green stalks, their tiny legs navigating the leaves. They gather on the bud. Gently, methodically, they begin to eat the wax. They are unlocking the flower. As they remove the sticky coating, the sepals begin to relax. The tension breaks. Slowly, thanks to their hungry work, the bud swells and bursts open, revealing the explosion of pink or white petals within. They are the unsealers of beauty. Without their humble, hungry work, the bloom would remain trapped. It is a symbiotic grace. The ant gets a meal, the flower gets to bloom. Imagine the sensation of a gentle, persistent force working on the stuck parts of your life, dissolving the sticky barriers that hold you closed until you are free to open up to the sun, layer by layer, in a glorious release of colour. While the ants in the garden encourage diversity, deep in the Amazon rainforest, there is a species that prefers a more minimalist aesthetic. We travel to the Devil's Garden, known to the locals as Supe Chakra. Here, in the riotous tangle of the jungle, where thousands of plant species fight for light, you will find a strange open clearing where only one type of tree grows, the Doroya hirsuta. For centuries it was believed that an evil spirit cleared these glades, but the spirit is the lemon ant. These tiny creatures live inside the hollow stems of the Doroya trees. They are the curators of the forest. If a vine or a sapling of any other species tries to grow near their home, the ants emerge. They do not cut the plant. They inject it with formic acid, acting as a natural herbicide. The intruder withers and dies within days. Visualize this perfectly manicured grove in the middle of the chaotic jungle. It is a space of order. The light filters down through the singular canopy, illuminating the open forest floor. It is a monoculture created by the will of the ant. There is a peace in this uniformity, a sense of a space that has been cleared of all distraction. It invites you to imagine clearing the weeds from your own mind, gently removing the thoughts that do not belong, until you are left with a spacious, orderly garden where only the things you have chosen are allowed to grow. In this curated forest, the trees often provide the housing, but some plants go even further, evolving into living hotels. We drift to the branches of the tropical canopy to find the hidden ophytum, the ant plant. This is an epiphyte, a plant that grows on other trees, airbound and rootless. It looks like a swollen, spiky tuber, a strange wooden bulb hanging from a branch. But if you were to slice it open, or better, drift inside like a ghost, you would see that the plant has grown a pre-made labyrinth. It is full of smooth, clean tunnels and chambers. The plant grew these rooms specifically for the ants. Visualize the ants moving into this turnkey apartment. They did not have to dig. The home was waiting for them. The walls are lined with special cells that can absorb the nutrients from the ants' waste. The plant feeds off the colony, and the colony lives inside the plant. It is a perfect embrace. The codex of the plant serves as the fortress for the insect. Imagine the feeling of finding a place where you fit perfectly, a space that seems to have been grown around you, accommodating your every need before you even arrived. You are the guest who completes the home, but inside these homes, whether in a tuber or a mound, there are sometimes guests who are not ants at all. We zoom into the floor of a bustling nest to find a small, flat creature scuttling among the workers. It is the ant cricket, Myrmecophilus. This tiny cricket has no wings and cannot sing. It has evolved to be the ultimate house guest. It is small and mimics the smell of the colony so perfectly that the ants treat it like a sister. But it has a trick. It cannot feed itself easily, so it approaches a worker and gently tickles her mouthparts with its antennae. It mimics the "I am hungry" signal of a fellow ant. The worker, deceived by the touch, regurgitates a drop of food. The cricket eats and scuttles away. Visualize this little mascot living safely in the fortress of a predator. It spends its days grooming the ants, licking the oils from their bodies to maintain its scent disguise. It is a gentle trickster, living in the flow of abundance. It reminds us that sometimes survival is not about being the strongest, but about being the most adaptable, blending in so seamlessly that the world feeds you simply because you are there. Outside the safety of the nest, however, there are traps that rely on geometry rather than disguise. We travel to the dry, sandy soil under a porch or a rock overhang. Here, the ground is pitted with perfect inverted cones. These are the traps of the antlion. The antlion is not a lion, nor an ant. It is the larvae of a lacewing fly. It digs a pit in the sand, throwing the grains out with violent flicks of its head until the slope of the walls is at the critical angle of repose. This means the sand is on the verge of collapsing. Visualize an ant walking to the edge of this crater. She peers over. The sand gives way. She slips. As she slides down, the creature at the bottom, a buried set of waiting jaws, flicks sand up at her, causing a landslide. But look at the physics of it. The pit is a masterpiece of simple engineering. It uses gravity as a weapon. Visualize the slide, the soft shifting grain of the sand. For the antlion, it is a game of patience. It sits buried at the bottom of the hourglass, waiting for the sands of time to bring the meal to it. It invites a contemplation of the slide into sleep. The way we circle the edge of consciousness, feeling the gravity of the dream world pulling us down, the soft, sandy slope giving way until we slide effortlessly into the centre of the deep, dark rest. While the antlion hides in the sand, other creatures hide in plain sight by wearing a disguise of texture. We encounter the velvet ant, which is in truth a wingless wasp. She wanders the desert floor, a flash of bright scarlet or burnt orange. But look at her surface. She's covered in a dense plush fur. She looks soft, touchable, like a piece of red velvet fabric dropped on the ground. This fur is a warning signal. She packs a powerful sting, but to the eye, it is pure texture. Visualize the sunlight catching the fuzz on her abdomen, creating a halo of red light. She moves with a confident, jerky gait. She is the cow killer of legend, but here, she's simply a beautiful texture in a harsh landscape. The contrast between the hard, dry desert and the soft velvet creature is striking. It reminds us that softness can be a form of armour. You can be plush, you can be vibrant, you can be soft to the touch, and still command absolute respect. You can wrap your strength in velvet. The velvet ant mimics an ant to blend in, but there are spiders that take the performance to a Shakespearean level. We meet the murmurarachne, the jumping spider that thinks it is an ant. Spiders have 8 legs, ants have 6. Spiders have no antennae, ants have 2. So what does this spider do? It walks on 6 legs. It raises its front 2 legs into the air and waves them around, pretending they are antennae. It even walks with a zigzag, erratic motion, mimicking the way an ant follows a scent trail. Visualize this tiny actor on a leaf. It is wearing a costume of behaviour. It stays close to the colony for protection, hiding in the crowd. It is the wolf in sheep's clothing, but often it eats only the larvae or small flies, avoiding the wrath of the soldiers. Imagine the focus required to maintain this act, to walk on 6 legs when you have 8, to wave your arms to blend in. It is a dance of survival. It suggests that we are defined by how we move through the world. If you move with the confidence of the group, you are accepted by the group. You can weave your own safety by simply acting as if you belong. Movement is usually a horizontal affair for ants, crawling, climbing, walking. But in the jungles of India, there is an ant that has unlocked the vertical leap. The Harpanatha saltator, or Jurden's jumping ant, is a creature of startling athleticism. Unlike most ants, which have small eyes, this hunter has massive doe-like eyes that take up half its face. It tracks prey visually, and when it strikes, it does not run, it jumps. Visualize the ant crouching, compressing its legs, then snap. It launches itself into the air, clearing inches of distance, the equivalent of a human jumping over a house. It sails through the air, mandibles open, and lands on its prey. There is a freedom in this movement. It breaks the rule that ants are bound to the surface. Visualize the arc of the jump, the momentary suspension of gravity. It is a leap of faith. It invites you to feel that sensation of weightlessness, of pushing off from the solid ground and soaring through the air, leaving the friction of the earth behind, if only for a second, to land somewhere new, somewhere better. And finally, we return from the air to the earth, to the soil that supports it all. We end this stream with the concept of bioturbation. We often praise the earthworm for turning the soil, but in many ecosystems it is the ant that is the true geoengineer. Every grain of sand in a forest has likely been moved, carried and placed by an ant at some point in history. They are the lungs of the earth. By digging their tunnels, they allow air and water to penetrate deep into the clay, reaching the roots of the ancient trees. They bring nutrients from the surface down to the depths, and they bring the mineral-rich subsoil up to the light. Visualize this constant global churning. It is a slow-motion boiling of the Earth's crust. The ants are mixing the ingredients of life. Without them, the soil would be hard, packed, and dead. Because of them, the Earth breathes. Imagine the planet beneath you right now. It is not solid rock. It is a sponge, aerated by trillions of tiny tunnels, a living, breathing matrix created by the patient work of the colony. You are resting on a living foundation. The earth is soft and receptive because of their labour. Let this knowledge ground you. You're supported by a world that is constantly being renewed, turned over, and freshened, grain by grain, in the silent, dark industry of the deep. And so, we arrive at the final threshold, the deepest secret buried at the very centre of the nest. We have journeyed through the architecture of the soil, the chemistry of the air, and the biology of the body. But the 101st wonder is not about anatomy or industry. It is about time itself. It is the secret of immortality. Consider this. A worker ant lives for a year. A queen may live for 30. But the colony has no lifespan. There are ant hills in the forests of Europe and the plains of Japan that have been active for centuries, longer than the nations that surround them have existed. This is the biological ship of Theseus. Every single ant that built the mound in the beginning has died and returned to the earth. Every single ant living there today is new, and yet the colony is the same. It remembers the location of the food sources found 100 years ago. It maintains the same structure, the same behavior, the same self. Visualize the colony not as a collection of insects, but as a single silver flame that is passed from wick to wick, never extinguishing. The individuals are the cells, born and dying in a rhythm of seasons, but the superorganism is the being that endures. It is a consciousness that flows through time, unaffected by the death of its parts. This is the profound final relaxation, the realization that life is a continuum. You're not just a solitary moment in time, you're part of a lineage, a flow of humanity, a river of existence that stretches back to the beginning of the stars and forward into the unknown. Rest in this concept of the eternal now. Just as the colony survives the winter to rise again in the spring, so too does the energy of the world renew itself. Nothing is lost. The wisdom is passed down in the dark from antenna to antenna, from generation to generation. You are safe within this great unending story. You are a part of the permanent things. The anxiety of the end dissolves when we see that the circle is unbroken, that the life force is a resilient golden thread that weaves through the dark earth, stitching the past to the future in a design of perfect, enduring peace. And now the journey is complete. The golden thread has been spun. We have drifted from the highest canopy where the gliders soar, down through the hollow thorns and the acorn shells, past the hanging gardens and the shining honeypots, deep into the warm, silent heart of the earth. The frantic movement of the day has slowed to a stillness. The millions of tiny legs have folded into rest. The great collective mind of the colony has quieted its hum, settling into the soft, rhythmic breathing of the soil. Feel the weight of this knowledge settling over you like a heavy, warm quilt. You have walked the spiral path. You have seen the hidden machinery of the world, and you have found it to be a place of order, of care, and of deep, instinctive wisdom. There is nothing left to learn tonight. There is nothing left to track or to count. The gates of the city are closed. The soldiers are sleeping. The queen is dreaming her deep, century-long dream in the dark. Let your own mind mimic this descent. Let the thoughts that scurry like workers slow down, finding their quiet chambers, curling up and turning off their sensors. The lights in the tunnels are dimming one by one. The air is cool and still. You're held by the gravity of the earth, supported by the ancient steady ground. You're part of this quiet. You're part of this rest. Drift away on the gentle underground tide, floating deeper and deeper into the velvet silence that waits for you. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.